True. Folks, we are live. Welcome to the Talking Crit Cast. With myself and Bad Mike, my usual co-host on Wednesday nights, is none other than Alex Kammer, best known for GameHole Con, writing adventures, published through, was it GameHole Publishing? Is your...
Yep, my little imprint is that, but then I get tangled up with these knuckleheads called Frog God. I don't know, you've never heard of them. Don't worry about them.
Oh no, never heard of them whatsoever. We would not. I have no clue what a frog is in this gaming community. But seriously, Alex, thank you for joining us. Obviously, folks, we had a little like there's a pre-con get it on, but we had our little pre-show catch up, and it was good. And I'm gonna tell you right now, we're going to touch on a lot of topics that I am sure are in the minds of a lot of our listeners because they're going to affect a lot of us going forward within this community. So,
Alex was kind of one of our dream guests, right? That we didn't think we could ever get because we're like, there's no way. No, seriously. I know we're friends there. We're buds and everything.
You're busy.
He's not going to be on our show because he meets with Watsy and they have meetings with the guy that runs Gen Con and Luca. I mean, he does not have time to hang out with us for a couple hours. So we just kind of always set you aside. And then when we did our guest for North Texas, month or so, I thought, well, we have a couple empty dates. I guess I'll call Alex and ask him. I mean, he's probably going to say no, but no, he said yes. So I'm just absolutely excited because I love talking with Alex. Alex is awesome.
You roasted me once already. You don't get to do it again. All right, come on. Roasted by you. Jeez.
We had a very memorable midnight auction roasting of Alex, which is it's gone down as a classic. Although last year's was classic too, or last year we did it when we got Ben Barsh. That was classic, and this year's I'm hoping is going to be classic also. But no, Alex was especially classic because it was some good stuff. We had some really good stuff for Alex.
That was fun. Getting the text, get out of your game and get to the midnight auction. I'm like, what? I've got 10 more minutes.
We're not above Subdiverge. We're not above Subdiverge to get you there to screw you over. So yes, that definitely did happen. So Alex, for those, I guess you would know. Maybe you don't know. Alex runs GameHole Con, which is probably one of the best conventions in the Upper Midwest. Not the best. At this point, I think it probably is the best. I don't know what Gen Con's doing. I saw some stuff Gen Con. I was like, I was shaking my head the other day. So you may be taking over Gen Con's spot as I heard they're not going to have a dealer room this year, or they're going to have a dealer room. No, they're not going to have auctions. No auctions this year, and a very limited access dealer room, which I understand why they're doing it, but it's still not a good look. But anyway, besides that, does GameHole. He also is a writer, and as a matter of fact, I did not plan this, but he's the author of this notable book. Just happens to be here. He really did just happen to be here. Eric can tell you.
Mike,
I just pulled. It's like a magic.
If I knew you were gonna pull that up, I'd have the picture of Zach on the share screen when Zach was all dressed up at GameHole for that.
Like I think that crab man.
Yeah. Oh,
but God. He does publishing, and he's just a really, really good part of the community. And so I met Alex for the first time years ago. He came to North Texas. I guess I didn't know very much about you, but I remember you really questioned Doug and I on running a con and just asking about and we run a con. We're only a 500 person con. It's like a backyard barbecue. We don't, we're not professional. Alex and I have said this a million times. I stick by it. He has the best run con I've ever been to in my life, bar none, flat out. That's just what it runs like a machine. No problems.
German.
No issue. Yes, it is.
The German, it will run like clockwork on time. You will do Alex says.
When did you decide that you wanted to run a con? Because that's just something I've always wanted to do, and I thought it was, and I just had a blast doing it. When did you decide that?
Well, like all bad ideas, it's something cooked up with friends over drinks, and that's how it happened. We're sitting up in the game hole, a place that and with my friends who I game with every week, also called the Game Hole. And we were talking about, God, it sucks that Gen Con's not in Milwaukee anymore. It's really a bummer. And There's nothing in Milwaukee. There's nothing in Madison. And look at Madison. God, we have more per capita game stores than any other city in the nation. We have the university here. Why isn't there a gaming show here? It's crazy. So that's where it started. And looking around the room and looking at the people who are arrayed around that table, all very competent and capable folks. And we thought, you know what, we can do at least as well as any other show that's running out there from an organizational standpoint, if not better. And then, and I think that we approached it with an admittance of ignorance. That's not what I do for a living. That's not any of my friends do for a living. So we asked people like you and everyone else who was willing to talk to us about what is it, what challenges do you run into. And so basically what we decided to do was eliminate all the things that annoyed us as attendees, take those away. So eliminate lines, eliminate screw ups with badges, eliminate games that don't start on time, eliminate GMs that don't show up on time, eliminate ticket problems, eliminate website problems, sites crashing with registration. There's no reason why we can't fix all these things if we take a little time and spend and think our way through these things. Because the problem is with most game shows that they're just real ad hoc, last second kind of put together things.
Sure.
And they're still super fun, and I love it. But man, is it annoying when you go get somewhere and there's these other things that are solvable that get in the way of your fun. So that's all. We're just trying to make it as frictionless an experience as possible for our attendees to just have a great freaking time and not have to worry about anything else. Quite frankly, your show was a great inspiration for how many industry people you have. You focus on mostly the original D&D folks, which is great, and older industry people. But you've also been bringing in new people, and that's great. But there's a number of them. I thought it was cool that you can just be walking around and bump into someone and have a 10-minute conversation. So that's exactly what I've tried to recreate, quite frankly, based on what you guys do at GameHole Con, with having a ridiculous amount of guests of people you'd never meet in real life, that you'd never have a chance to speak to, who are told affirmatively, you do not get to stay in your hotel room. You will be out on the show, out on the floor. You'll be out on the show. Your role here is to talk to people and enjoy, and they love it. The guests love it.
Sure.
They get to do what they always want to do. They don't want to have to sit in endless lines of panels like other bigger industry shows.
Or they don't want to run a game every single session. They want to be able to, because I don't know what your rule is at GameHole. I actually don't know, but we tell them they only have to run 2 sessions, and if they want to run more, they can, but they don't have to. This is all up to them. We had some people just absolutely blew their mind because they're used to going to cons, and because they're the special guests, they're being scheduled every single session of the day. Every day they're there, and so they were excited not to have to run that many games.
We don't even have a rule, but it's like, we'd like you to run at least one. How about one?
Okay.
Well, that's great.
And so, because everyone's so nice, these folks appreciate how much of knuckleheads we are, and they want to help us. So what can we do? We'll be on panels. We'll be on streaming games. We'll run as many. And I don't want a bunch of streaming games. Streaming games are fine. You can always pop in and watch streaming games. What I want are people like B. Dave Walters, who's coming this year, to run games in just a room with people that will never get that experience. Or when Matt Mercer comes to our show, not to watch him stream a game, to play in his game. That's an amazing experience. Or Chris Perkins, or any of those people. I mean, it's fine to watch them on a stream, but I've never really understood the whole thing of having a convention and then have a bunch of streaming that happens there. It's fine. But, why? What do you? We have a streaming room, and we're gonna do it because it's for charity. We do it for Extra Life, but it in no way interferes with what our real expectation of what our guests are there to do, and that is to play games with our attendees.
Sure. Right. No, that's good philosophy. I appreciate you giving us giving North Texas praise. Like I said, we're kind of like the garage sale of conventions in a lot of ways. But that was one of the things that Doug and I always, at the very beginning, we wanted to have a lot of special guests. Now, I'm actually of the school. I think Doug goes overboard, but everybody loves it, and so it's just tradition we've always had that literally 10% of our attendees are special guests, which is insane. But it works. Like you said, people that once they see the guest list, it just blows their mind. And GameHole is the same way. You guys have been able to do, because we're mostly geared towards the earlier pre-2000 type guests. Although we've been getting a little younger, just because most guys are getting older and can't attend cons. Guys like Jim Ward and Tim Cass, etc. So we're trying to get you and the Jeff Talanians and the people like that at the con. But you have guests from all. I mean, you cover everything from the earliest days to really recent stuff. Like, we don't have streamers at our con. Probably half people attend our con don't know what a streamer is, because we tend to skew a little older at my con. So I think that's really cool that you're able to service so many areas of fandom. And I also I want to say you're one of the first people I know that likes old school gaming, but also really, really embraced 5e. I mean, you're a huge proponent of 5e, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. And well, first of all, I love all games. That's the thing. I'm playing a BX game. This is a shameful name drop. I'm playing a BX game right now run by Mike Merles, because he's the author, he's the designer of 5e, but he also, like me, loves the original games. I played in several old school games with Mike, and he plays with us in. I'm a big fan of the Free League games. So I'm playing Forbidden Lands and Alien and Vaesen, and those are. I'm just a gamer. I just love role playing games. So with 5th edition, because it was not 4th edition, and it was a simpler, cleaner, lighter version of an amalgamation of different rule sets, and it was very easy to pick up and play. That's all I want. I don't want to be burdened. I'm just a rules light guy. I'm more of a narrative gamer, and that is not a rip. If you like heavy miniatures, counting every square, great. And if you want like table after table after table, if you want to play 5th edition Traveler, I mean, just have at it, man. That's great. It's just not my jam. I'm more of a BRC guy. I love the Chaosium games. I adore. And that's why I like the Free League stuff, because it's very simple. It's just D6s, the small dice pools of D6s, and just so that's my jam. That's why 5e had such an attraction for me, and it also just seemed to energize the hobby, and it energized me. It got me going again. That's what got me into back into authorship and into publishing books. So but I certainly won't say, well, 5e is better than me. I will always identify as a 1e 2e guy, because I don't draw that line where some people do, like when Gary left the company. There's a lot of good stuff that happened in 2nd edition, in my opinion. I really like.
Oh God, I played the shit out of 2nd edition. It didn't fall apart until the splat books went beyond the first 4. Yeah. And once you had still for me, it's the most infamous is the Complete Book of Elves. Blade Singer destroyed a campaign for me. So and if my friend Dave was listening to this, your Blade Singer still sucked. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I will at some point, Eric. I'll make this happen. I will hold Colin McComb in a headlock at GameHole Con, and you can give him like 3 kidney punches. It'll be great.
I'll give him noogies. I'll give him 3 little
No. It'll be Pratt punches, but he'll love it, because he's totally willing to fall on that grenade.
All right. That would actually be worth it. Listen again. I love 2E. I bought it the night it released. I had to walk 2 miles to the bookstore that I had pre-ordered that, and I was like, it was all excitement. So and that, of course, even back then though, whether it was 1E or 2E, you ran all the material together. Maybe the rules, but the adventure that you were running with it. I was Elemental Evil or whatever else I wanted to run with it. That didn't change. So even 5e, it's the rising tide that lifts all ships. I can't complain about it. It's at my age, it's not something that I'm looking to put the time into learning well enough to DM. Would I play a session? Yes. But again, to run a session, you have to be pretty fluent with the rules. And I'm
the last thing I want to come on anyone's show or talk anyone to any particular edition of D&D. Geez, just play whatever edition turns you on. And I've played them all, and I enjoy them all. They all have things that I like. But I'm a freaking gamer wonk. That is, I'll play anything that someone's willing to, especially someone's willing to. I'll play anything new if someone's willing to show me. What I don't like are these massive grimoires that come out of new games. I look at it like, man, I've got like 4 hours of just reading to get a basic understanding of it. Then I'm not going to do it. Then camera's out at that point because I don't have the time or the energy to do that at this point in my life too. So I hear you, Eric. I totally hear you. I mean, I get it.
Well, the industry's movement had been moving towards simpler. I think that the peak over the top was probably, right. I guess right when we started in North Texas, about 2007, 2008, when 3.5 was going great, and then Pathfinder came out, and it was all about, hey, you could customize your character. And then I started hearing stories about, it takes 2 hours to create your character at the table. Yeah, well, but it did. I mean, because you were customizing your character to your build, so when you got really high level, everything would be in line. I think that was kind of when the backlash started. Then people were like, wait a second, let's try Osric, let's try Swords and Wizardry. Let's go back to the simpler days. And one of the things I really like about 5th edition is they acknowledge that. They acknowledge the fact that, maybe people just want to sit down and play. Maybe they don't want to spend 3 hours making a character. They may just want to play. And that's something that, a lot of old schoolers have always known, is that you're having the most fun. Yeah, there's old schoolers. I mean, Eric knows them too. There's old schoolers that will sit there and they love to take the 1st edition AD&D book and, roll up a 3-hour character. I want to see if I can create a first level bard or 1st edition bard or something. But yeah, the whole industry is moving towards more simpler, easier, quicker flowing games. And I think 5th edition was it was a perfect zeitgeist. Just hit exactly when people were just getting tired of these, these really, really long and involved character type creation events.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's the beauty and why I've so enjoyed going back to DX because it's 6 minutes of thinking about what you're going to do. Roll your characteristics. Doesn't matter what they are. Let's play. Are you an elf or whatever? And you go play, and it's just that. It's super fun and easy, and that's why I like it. So I hadn't played BX in so long, and it's been actually kind of good. Something like 10 years, something like that. So it's been fun to play again. I'm enjoying
BX is my preferred. That's my con. I mean, that's my preferred con rule set. I use that when I run B1, which I'm actually not running this year, but I almost always run B1. I use BX because I think in 8 or 9 years we looked at the rule book twice.
Yeah, there's nothing in it. There's nothing in there.
To know how far an arrow went, and then the other one was a spell. Somebody said, "Oh, I actually missed. How far does that go?" And we had to look it up because it was across the room, and that was it. We haven't looked at the rules, and we have the rule book sitting there, and nobody even opens the rule books because you're right. It's just you just know what to do. It's like you don't have any issues with what's going on.
It's like having to consult a rule for Boot Hill. I mean, unless someone's throwing a stick of dynamite, there's no reason to look into that. That's a nice thing.
Well, you're gonna die. You're gonna die in the first shootout in the bar anyway. So there's no point in
avoid contact. Avoid.
Yeah, once the guy pulls a shotgun, that's it. The game over anyway. So I was just showing. I was showing once again. I was showing Sea King's Malice, which is a campaign. And one of the reasons we have you on here also is to talk about whatever projects you have coming up. So I'm sure you've got some stuff coming up. Why don't you let us know? You wrote Sea King's Malice for 5e, right? Because we also have a Swords and Wizardry version. I guess that got converted by the editors, but you wrote it for 5e. And that was a campaign that you had run with your group, or did you just create that for the book itself?
I just wrote that I just sat down and wrote it. And then ran it for my group as a playtest. But no, this is not like my homebrew world. Actually, all of our good friends, Bill Webb asked me. He said, "Well, it would be great if you would run a nautical themed adventure, right? A nautical themed adventure involving the Sahagin or Sahugin or however you want to pronounce them." Right. So then I just dove into it, and I even braced our friend Steve Marsh at your show. Who's the inventor of those creatures, and talked to him at length about it, and and went back and reread all the great supplements from TUI. Actually, there's some really cool stuff from TUI about the Sahagin.
Yeah, they had a nice trilogy and a source book also on the Sea Devils. Yep. Yeah, I remember that. It's really good.
Yep. So that's all. And Bill wanted a more, he was looking for a 5e style adventure. So it wasn't written for 5e, but it was written in that I guess that spirit. So it is that's what I did, and it's been cool. It's been fun. I've run it a bunch of times since then, and it's always fun when I run into people and they say they really like it and all that. It's been cool. But now, same knuckleheads have tasked me with a different kind of game, a different kind of product, and which I'm actually more interested in. This is I'm teaming up with a good friend of mine, Alan Patrick, and Alan is he's been an author for a bunch of different companies, and he is now one of the D&D AL Adventure League admins. But he's a really talented author. He has a bunch of stuff on DM's Guild. He and I are writing a really big, sprawling campaign set in the haunted steps of the Frog God setting. And it's really an unknown, it's really an undeveloped. I just said, Bill, tell me somewhere that doesn't have much lore, so we can write that lore. So it's going to be a campaign, like a level 1 through 15 kind of adventure, but also a lot of world building, and that's what I really like. Is really developing these towns, developing the lore, developing the cultures, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really big undertaking. So I've written the first 25% of it. Alan's in the middle. He's almost done with the next 25%. The book comes back to me shortly here. I think June 1 is when we're sort of looking at that. So I'll take another whack at it. So that's coming. I don't know when that's, I can't speak.
Does it have a name yet? Do you have a name for the campaign or just?
No. They named the region the Haunted Steps, which would be a great name for a book, but unfortunately, they already took, so we'll have to come up with something sexy to name. But that's, it's just called the Haunted Steps right now, just because we haven't gotten that far. But it's going to be really cool. And I'm really enjoying that. But the other thing that's more immediate is that I'm writing a source book with Ed Greenwood for Fae in the Forgotten Realms. And, the Forgotten Realms gets, it's funny, in especially old school circles, there's a lot of mixed feelings about the Forgotten Realms just because they got picked up and was sort of the dominant setting in later half of 2E and now in 5E. But the fact is, the Forgotten Realms predated D&D original. Ed Greenwood was writing the Forgotten Realms before OD&D was even published. So it's been around for as long or longer than any other setting, including Blackmoor or Greyhawk. That's just a fact. Anyway, leaving that with that proviso aside, because my old school sensibilities have to defend what I'm doing. Fae is an interesting region. Everyone's heard of the Red Wizards of Fae, but no one really knows anything about the country. And so this is fun writing about this, because in all the years that Wizards and TSR and Wizards who've had the Forgotten Realms, there's not been a Fae product produced, and there has not been any Fae swag, there hasn't been any Fae anything. And so we thought about contacting Wizards and saying, hey, do you guys want us to write this book? But then there was going to be a total pain in the ass process. And we're like, no, let's just not do that. We'll just do it on our own and publish it on the DM's Guild. And then we'll, I'm sure.
I wonder how you could do that. That makes sense. You do it on DM's Guild. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll do it because I know they'll do a print on demand option so people can get a book that looks just like a 5e book, and it's going to be, the finishes will be the same with lots of art. It'll be great. And then I don't have to get any approval, because that process is just a freaking nightmare. And if you want to talk, we could talk about that for at length of what that looks like. It's not fun. So I'm just not interested. And Greenwood's not interested at this point either. He just wants to have fun writing the stuff. And, so
this must be a bucket list item for you. I mean, you're getting to work on the setting of Forgotten Realms with Ed Greenwood. That's absolute bucket list material right there.
Yeah. We released the Border Kingdoms book last year, and that was super fun. And it's just I'll tell you, Ed is an amazing dude. If you're writing with him, if you're doing a project with him, it is like sipping from a fire hose. Because you say, Ed, here's what we talk about, here's what you're going to write. And it just seriously, hours later, it just goes back at you, and it's done and ready. It's like, my God, I need weeks to write that much. He's explosively prolific. It's really far up.
There's only a few people in the industry Gary was like that in terms of, I'll give an example. Ed's stuff is so dense. It's so amazing because he used to write a column for the Polyhedron magazine where he would take little locations of Forgotten Realms, write like a one or two page thing. He wrote about I can't remember the name of the village, but it's a village and there's a tower out there that a mage had. And he put so much detail into like 4 pages. You could run a complete campaign just based on the way he set this campaign. All it was is like, hey, here's a little location of Forgotten Realms. It's a tower. A mage had it. He won a bet with some dwarves and this, and he told a couple of things that go on around there, a couple of the creatures. I mean, it was the most, and he can just do that. He's one of those few guys, and Gary was like that too, where Gary, just the economy of words, just through a few sentences can just give you 100 ideas. And that's what I love about Ed, is because literally that's what he does. He, for a paragraph, he gives you enough that you can run a campaign on it. Just what's all shoved in that paragraph. And that's an amazing talent to have.
John Miller wants to know what we think of the Forgotten Realms. And for me, the original Gray Box Forgotten Realms setting, I'm a Greyhawk fan, don't get me wrong, but I got more mileage out of that Forgotten Realms Gray Box because it fleshed things out more than the Greyhawk Folio or even the original Greyhawk box set that followed, but without going into so much details that it predestined the world for you. So that Gray Box, I ran adventures from for...
God, we talk about that. I think it's the best sandbox, one of the best sandboxes ever published, because in that Gray Box you have a planet. It gives you, here's a bunch of different countries, and it throws everything from you got Thay, you got Cormyr, which is a traditional type kingdom. You've got an Egyptian kingdom. You got Waterdeep, all this stuff. It gives you a pantheon of deities. And there was adventures. I mean, it just gives you so much in that Gray Box. You didn't need anything else that ever came out, and you could run a campaign that would last forever just based on that one box. And so, we did a lot of Forgotten Realms adventuring in the late 80s, early 90s. I actually ran an Undermountain campaign that lasted about 2.5 years, and we probably had about 30 players run through that campaign. It was a very, very fun campaign, but I think it's a different world than Greyhawk. But that's good. You don't want to have the same kind of fantasy worlds. I mean, Greyhawk's more of it's a wargamer world because it was built out of war games. You got these giant armies. There's not a lot of magic. These armies are always marching around. They're doing shit. Forgotten Realms is a more traditional fantasy setting it's a high magic setting. You have Myth Drannor. You have different areas like that. So you don't want the same kind of flavor of ice cream every time you go to the Baskin Robbins. You want to try different flavors. I think it works really well when contrasted with Greyhawk.
Well, and just one more comment about it, and I'd be happy to expound on the Forgotten Realms and its importance, and for me too. I mean, it was a big one for me. But I'm running at your show, Mike, a playtest for the Thay book, and it's called Intrigue in Eltabar. It's the adventure I'm writing in the book, and so I said to Ed, Ed, Eltabar is the capital city of Thay. So I said, I need, can you just give me a paragraph of Thayan wedding traditions? Because there's a wedding and I just need to be accurate with that. And then came back like.
A whole supplement box set. Thayan wedding traditions.
Like he had addresses for the main churches in Eltabar and the side streets, and he's just like, dude, I can't work all this in. It's tremendous. And so anyway, I'm going to splash around with that at your show about.
Great. That's exciting. Yeah.
It's going to be a non-bug hunt city kind of thing, and I really want to see how that goes. It's kind of pushing the D&D in a little, much more urban adventure kind of thing, because Thay is a controlled society. It's a police state. So, it's not like you go adventuring, not in the traditional way. Outlanders are not really tolerated, and, you have to watch your ass while you're there, and there are checkpoints and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be interested to see how your folks get it, because it'll be instructive. I just don't know. I don't know if people enjoy playing it or not. That's
interesting. Yeah.
That's a nice little
play testing is we're always welcome in our con. By the way, we have asked Ed a few times to come to our Texas, but he does not travel very far from Canada. Apparently, that's one of the things he talks about. So you're very lucky to have you've had him at your show before, but I guess you're just right on the edge of being close enough for him to travel to in the United States, because he apparently does not make a lot of trips to the United States. So we'd love to have him someday, but it's just probably not going to be in the cards. But
no, he's flown a couple times to my show, but he really likes to drive, and that's what he's going to do this year. He'll drive down, and his wife, he's a much older bride. She's been in poor health forever, so that's been an ongoing saga, and always a complication for Ed too. It's just, this is so bizarre, here, this, again, we go back to why you want to get into gaming. 2012, my knucklehead friends are sitting around my gaming table, and we're talking about this nonsense. And then we launch this adventure of running a game show, and I meet people like you, Mike and Eric. And then I've overnighted Ed's house like 3 times since then. I talked to Mike Moore. I talked to Mike Moore on the drive up here today because we were talking about the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks, because we're about, so he's just a good friend of mine now. And it just is so normal, but it's still a little surreal when I think about it. And all
it's
the other
crazy.
folks.
Yeah.
I talked to Eric and I talked about this before. Like I'm sitting the other day going, somebody's calling me Alan. Oh, Alan Hammock. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm looking at 40 years ago, me would be like, what? I'm like, oh, Alan. Oh, I can't talk to Alan right now. I'm doing, I'll hang up on him and I'll call him back later. So it is crazy when you get this life of running cons and you start talking to these guys all the time. I've talked to, and the guys you talk to, like Errol Otis. I never thought in a million years that I would ever talk to Errol, but I didn't think he's the kind of guy he is, which is the most quiet, unassuming, polite, nice, just the nicest dude you'd ever meet. And when I was a kid, I just thought his artwork was just crazy. I mean, that was like the ultimate. I want to be able to draw. I have a friend that we still have drawings, and we still play D&D every once a month, and he just did slavish imitation Errol Otis artwork, and I still have those pages when we were kids, and I threaten to tell him, but he's got to come to the con. I'm going to make you show these to Errol. Which unfortunately Errol's not coming this year, but
flapping over your left shoulder is Errol, what he did for our show.
Yes, and I got that from you, and I actually got this from you too, so I appreciate that. Yeah. You've given half my wall of art here. You've donated to me, so I appreciate that.
I've got this year. Charles Urbach is doing our art. I don't know if you know what Charles. Okay. Yeah, he's. I just got an email from him. It's really, that's another thing. Like, I'm kicking around concepts about because we do each year we do a print. We do an original work that one of these folks do, and then we sell 50 reproductions, and that's it, never to be seen again. And we sell them for a low, like after $50 or something. They're just cheap, so people can afford to get something special that will appreciate and value by someone that's a legend in the industry. And I think that's an important thing to do. That instead of this, especially art is insane. And I'm a lunatic collector. That's a whole nother subject. Yeah. The art collection's even worse. It just is. It's so trying to make it a little pluralistic that way about, to have some access to some of this stuff. And that's what's so great about that, Errol. That's his conception over your left shoulder is what he in his brain thinks of the GameHole.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not know that. Nice. That's interesting. We maybe touched on the GameHole, but you're also known in the gaming circles as you have this incredible collection. I've been to the as someone who's been to the GameHole. It's as mind-blowing as you'd ever imagine it. But just imagine the clubhouse of your dreams. But you have a pub. You own this pub, right? And then above the pub, you go up these little set of stairs, and there's just giant game room with an art ceiling, and it's just got anything you can ever imagine D&D wise and shrink, and it's got manuscripts and maps and plushies and just anything. It's just an absolutely incredible experience to go to the GameHole, and so that was something else. So when did you just decide that? You know what? I'm just gonna let my freak flag fly here. I mean, yeah, I'm a collector, but I'm just gonna start getting all this stuff. When did you decide this?
Well, I mean, that's a I don't know. That's to when you start to go get everything. That's obviously a position of a certain amount of affluence. It goes without saying, and so that coincided with my getting a little older and making maybe some good decisions in life or whatever. But so there's, it's not that I didn't find things in a dumpster or anything like that. They were all, fortunately I got involved with this years ago. So most of the stuff, like main collectors out there who are all friends of ours, have had this stuff forever, and we're all stunned watching the stuff appreciate at ridiculous,
crazy
Bitcoin kind of ways. It's just like, what the hell's going on? Like, when I remember when I bought from Doug his copy of B3, the orange B3 in original shrink wrap.
Yep.
I bought his shrink wrap copy, and he's like, God, I'll sell it to you for $1,500. And I thought, $1,500? You got to be out of your freaking mind. $1,500?
Doug, that could finance the con for the next 3 years now.
I thought about it, and I thought about it, and finally said, okay, Doug, I'll buy it. And holy, I mean, I have 2 copies of Up the Garden Path I got for a while. I got those a while ago, and stuff like that. So anyway, what I have is everything. I have all the rares, and I have a complete set of everything that TSR ever produced in original shrink wrap. All the way. I'm almost to. I now have decided to go all the way to like post WotC acquisition to when they actually stopped 2E, which is 2000. Anyway, I'm getting very close to having it all complete. The other sort of jewels of my collection are, we talked about the Forgotten Realms. I have the original Forgotten Realms maps which
I've seen, which is awesome. That's incredible.
Yeah, he hand drew them and mailed them to TSR in Lake Geneva, and Jeff Grubb received them, taped them all together, put them up on his cubicle. And I have those. I rescued those, and I also, for those who have old school sensibilities, I have the original known world map from Lawrence Schick and Moldvay. They played in college. What they're playing in Ohio, they played in this map, this big hex map. And as you well know, that became the Gazetteers and the Mystara setting and all that stuff. So I have that original map and restored. And these things came to me in rough shape too. And I had them, professionally preserved and sealed. And so I've never seen myself as like a hoarder. I don't want to try to buy everything and try to like, look at my collection, look how cool I am. I've always thought, just get these things and preserve them has always been my goal. And, all the shrink wrap stuff, it's not because I have some bizarre fetish about plastic. It's just because perfection, a perfect copy, to assemble a perfect set of everything. Yeah. That it could go somewhere. I mean, between 4 or 5 collectors, I don't have even my shrink wrap stuff. Not all of it's perfect. A lot of it is, but between all of us, we could assemble a perfect set and like Smithsonian kind of endowment. Like, here is the history of D&D in perfection, in original form, that no eyes have ever sullied these pages, no fingers have touched them. That's how much I care about this hobby, about especially D&D, how much it means in my life, that I'm willing to. I want this to happen, and so that's why 10 years ago I was kicking around at the Gen Con auction and on eBay and then at your auction, and to buy this stuff, to keep it and preserve it. And so now it's on display at the GameHole. Anyone who's out there who's listening, or watching, and wants to ever check it out, just reach out to me. If you're in Madison, Wisconsin, I will give you I'll happily meet you, and I'll show you my pub, and then go upstairs and look at the GameHole, because I know how much this means to all of us. These artifacts. And I want to share them. They're not secreted away in a bank vault or anything like that. So, anyway.
A couple points I want to make. Well, number one, I think that's cool, because that's kind of another really, really huge collector. Bill Meinhardt's also very good with his time. If you want to come see his collection, just let him know, and you'll zip by his house in Chicago. That's all, there under lock and key and armed guards and whatever, attack Dobermans. But I was going to say, is collecting now, it's kind of funny, because the reason I asked that question was I got in when I got on AOL in 1992. I did not have access to a lot of stuff. Suddenly I'm on AOL, and there's all this stuff that I've never even heard of. And that's when I kind of marked my collecting, even though I started playing in 78, and I would buy anything TSR that came out. I really didn't become what I think is a collector until 92. And it was a lot easier back then. And now collectors, I mean, it is a tough game to get into now, because like you said, we're paying the prices that are being paid now for stuff are just out. I looked at something the other day. I have a couple of kind of hard to find valuable items. I've got a, I don't know if it's a Ghost Tower or Lost Tomoken. And I still have the original price I paid for it in the back, which is like $686, which at the time was just a ton of money. I mean, you were talking, 10 years ago. And I just saw one go for $6,000 on eBay though. I mean, that's what people are having to look at now to collect this stuff. It used to be like, well, it's tough, because I don't consider myself, wealthy or affluent by any means, but back then you could save enough money to buy something decent. You could buy a orange B3, or you could buy a Ghost Tower, tournament copy. Right. And nowadays it's really, I think it's just price. The regular collector is priced out of that business entirely.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, so it's easy to look at what's happening with D&D collectibles and engage in hand wringing, but the fact is that it's far more so in worlds like Magic, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon cards right now. I mean, so what's happening is there's like us that are people that are, we grew up with D&D. There are now people who are ascending into affluence in their 30s who grew up with Pokemon and Magic and so on, and they're just throwing buckets of cash at this stuff, and the market is going crazy. And quite frankly, 5th edition D&D got all kinds of people into D&D, and so now they're interested in the roots of the hobby, and they're just more and more people who are coming in to the collecting world because they're interested in the history of it and the background of it. That's just the fact. There's just much more demand for this stuff, and that's not going to change.
It's just going to get more expensive, and it's funny because when I decided I wanted to start collecting RPG material, and I looked at the amount of material from TSR, and this is about, 15 years ago, I was really looking at it. I was like, there's no way. So what did I do? My other fancy RPG that I really enjoyed was Tunnels and Trolls. So I said, let me collect Tunnels and Trolls stuff. And I have a lot of the first printings of a lot of the solos. I have Ken St. Andre's personal copy of the second print, signed by Ken. It's a beater copy. And I thought that, wow, I've got something really cool. And I'm sitting down with Bill Meinhardt at North Texas RPG Con at one midnight auction. Yeah. And Bill's showing me his catalog of everything he has.
That he carries around with him, by the way, at conventions. It's like this that he carries around just so he can, scoreboard you whenever he's sitting there.
He loves the flax on you.
Yeah. So here I am figuring, wow, there's no way. I think, though, I probably have something that Bill have, because obviously it's like, so he's like, I was like, well, Bill, I actually do have Ken St. Andre's personal copy of the second print of Tunnels and Trolls, signed by Ken. He goes, oh, it's an amazing acquisition. He goes, hey, and I'd probably make an offer if I didn't own his first print copy.
He scoreboarded you there. See, look oh God, he's got a problem.
Can I? Speaking of collecting, I know I'm supposed to pimp the things I'm doing, but we're done with that, hopefully. So let's. So here's a
wherever you want. We're the hex scroll. We're the hex scroll of a podcast. Just wherever you want to go, Alex. Exactly. Just go for it.
Looks like West. Okay, so the Mark Miller is coming to our show as he does every year, and this is I'll break this here. This is a good place to do it. The original Traveler box. Mark took the first 10 off the line and marked them as such. And through the years, they have been donated to various things, but he's kept number 1, and he's giving it to me this year at GameHole Con.
Ooh.
Original Traveler box.
Wow.
Dang.
This is for auction or for your personal collection, so you can stare at and salivate as you
just giving it to me. Yep, he knows. We've talked about why I do this, and it's not to resell, and it's not to
sure.
And
that's what's great about the hobby is you do have a lot of people. I know one of the great things, and Doug and I were just talking about this the other day, was that the position we've been in, people who the hobby kind of overlooked. One of them was Steve Marsh, who was very important to the early years, but he got out of the hobby, became a lawyer, wasn't involved in the hobby at all for years. And we invited him to one of our early shows just because he was based in Plano, which is very close to DFW. And a lot of our guests were so cheap, we were getting Jaquays, who lived up the street, and Dennis Sestair, who lived in Austin. We're just trying to get these guys that are close by to come. Well, somebody's like, Steve Marsh lives pretty close by. Well, because of this relationship we've had with Steve, and I'd consider Steve a friend now at this point, he's given us just boxes of manuscript. I mean, he has letters from Gary Gygax, correspondence, because he and Gary were apparently very close friends, and at least for a time when they were working on Shadowlands and some other projects. And through that, Doug's been able to get these, really important pieces. I think a lot of them are in Bill Meinhardt's collection now. He's made sure that they've gone to different people in the hobby. I don't know if he's given you anything or not. If not, he probably needs to, because I know he likes to kind of spread it around the collector base. But this stuff was just, it was, and Steve was also a really early contributor to some of the early fanzines, like what's the really early one that that everybody talks about. He wrote a lot of letters to some of the early ones with a lot of rules, a lot of new rules he was thinking up for OD&D. He still had all those notes. He has all those notes, and so Doug has a lot of that, which is great because without people like Doug and yourself and Bill and people like that, who knows what would happen to this? A lot of these guys, I know, and I've told this story before. Peter Karaston, Doug contacted the first convention because we were big We Warriors fans, and we're like, whatever happened to Peter Karaston? Well, we talked to him. He's just chilling out. He's just doing something else. And so he verbally over the phone gave us the rights to reprint any We Warrior stuff for the con in perpetuity, which is great. And so we did that the first few cons. But also he had told us a really sad story about, I can't believe you guys called now because a few weeks ago I just tossed all my old We Warrior stuff in a dumpster because I didn't think anybody'd be interested in it. So we basically missed by he had the original plates for Palace of the Vampire Queen. He just threw them away. And he didn't know. I mean, this is 2007, 2008. Didn't know. Nobody had ever talked to him in years about gaming. And it's great now that we have people in the hobby that are, making sure this stuff gets preserved, because this is like, some of the stuff's like the Rosetta Stone of gaming. You have things that, and John Peterson's also been very influential in our hobby in making sure that, some of this really hard to find stuff is getting out. But it's good for people to know that this stuff is actually sought after and not just, it's just a bunch of, I still run into guys, in our hobby that just don't know what they have, I've got some letters that Gary Gygax wrote about this. Well, that's worth something because, Gary is a pivotal figure in our hobby. And what Gary thought and what he did in the early 70s is, kind of why we're all here, where we're at now. So yeah, that's great. I love places like the GameHole is awesome. If you ever have a chance, go to the GameHole because it's just really cool. You can't get it all in one visit either, because each visit you're going to be focused. I think the last time I was in there, you had just gotten the map in for Forgotten Realms, so I'm just sitting there, slobbering over that. I'm trying to put my drink on it, to put a big ring on it or anything like that. But
it's sealed. You can't hurt it at this point. So I guess. I'm going to try to, my mildly Scotch addled brain at this point, I'm going to try to remember two things. So one is the preservation aspect. For example, I got a call from Ernie Gygax, one of our favorite knuckleheads in the industry, who he said, I've got a friend who's got original canvas of Greyhawk, and it's in his garage, and it's, he's looking to sell it. So I drove down to Lake Geneva and I saw this thing, and it's this huge canvas, big canvas, beautifully painted. And Mike, you guys have seen it because I displayed it at GameHole Con every year. Of Greyhawk, but it's clearly been rodent eaten, and paint is starting to flake, and it's just moldy. And so I said, well, this is beautiful, but what does your friend want for it? So we worked that out, and I bought it from him. And I did a little research, and I found a conservancy in Chicago who did, actually, they're the folks who did the Sistine Chapel. And they said, yeah, we'll take that. And so I left it with them for 2 months, and I got it back. And my bill there was far more than what I paid for it.
I'm sure.
Oh, no.
But they fixed it. Like they had actual real experts, recolor it and safe it and restitch canvas in the back and make it perfect. And that would have been lost. That was going to be just, this dude had it in his freaking garage or something, and there's so many stories like that. It's but I'm the fact that
I know Bill had
go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
Well, no, I know Bill had shipped to him from the creator of Judges Guild. He had the original Teagle Manor map. Just, it had been the same kind of thing where he gets it and he's not sure what to do with it. So he calls up Bill Meinhardt. Bill Meinhardt's like, well, don't touch it. First of all, you don't want to touch it because your fingers have oils on it. And so Bill also had that professionally restored and put into a frame, which keeps his house now with all, the UV glass and all the great stuff like that. But that's, there's things like that all over the hobby people don't realize. And because I know because I've been buying, selling, and trading RPGs since 1992. I'm one of the longest in the business, besides Zochi and a couple other guys. And there's a lot of resentment for people who do what we do, or who buy, sell, and trade, because they look at gaming as sacred. This is something you shouldn't be buying and selling. You shouldn't buy a Orange B1 and then resell it years later for a profit. But the reality is, I mean, that's just the reality of it, right? I mean, things go up in value, and that's what I do. Is I'm a buy, sell, and trader. But there's a lot of hostility, and I always point out to people, these are the guys saving the hobby. I mean, yes, you may get mad because you can't afford an Orange B3 anymore, but guess what? People aren't throwing Orange B3s in the trash anymore, are they? And I used to hear so many stories about people just tossing their D&D collections. One of the best collections I ever got was a guy on Craigslist, and I called him. He said, "Yeah, I just dragged it out to the side of the road. The trash are going to come get it tomorrow. If you want to come get it, come by." And I'm my wife like, "Get in the car, honey." We're haul ass, and I actually felt bad and actually gave the guy some money, because I said, I can't. It was such an amazing collection. I said, I just can't take this. But he just dragged it out to the side of the road and was just leaving it there. And so I don't think you see that as much anymore, which is good, because more stuff's preserved. But yes, the side effect is it's very expensive to get in our hobby now.
Well,
I mean, it has a pretty high buy-in if you want any of the rares, I guess.
Case in point, a very recent case in point was the goofy sale in Southern Illinois of a pretty decent collection, and our friend Ingo,
I saw that, yeah,
and bought the Pharaoh for $12,000, and and that's what.
Yeah, because my first Gen Con I went to, there was a Pharaoh on sale, and I want to say that Jeff Emery bought it for about $3,000. This is this is 10 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago, but still, that's insane. That's an insane jump in price. But yes,
the other subject that I wanted, because Steve Marks triggered this, have been, because as con runners, and we're inviting all these guests, that there are a lot of, especially in TSR, people who are self-promoters, and then people who are not, who had very important, impactful careers in gaming, who are not celebrated. And one of those is a guy that I think is wonderful, is James Lauder, who had a really big impact in 1E and 2E. He was an editor and author, and he wrote all kinds of stuff. And
I remember reading a lot of his stuff, fiction-wise, a lot of stuff that he edited.
Yeah, and he's the most self-promoting guy ever. And so when you talk about Steve, that's the same kind of thing. We know the people that there are the more diva side, and then there's the rest. And
Steve is humble. He's one of the most humble.
Yeah.
Well, I actually wound up getting one of the Dangerous Journeys things. I won it at the not the midnight auction, one of the regular auctions. It was signed by Gary to Steve, and then Steve signed it from him to me.
He's one of those. So he's an amazing guy, because he is very low on possessions. He and his wife right now, they're hiking the Appalachian Trail. They have been for the last few years. He doesn't like a lot of possessions, so he has been extremely generous over the years about giving like personal items like that. Something signed by Gary Gygax to Steve. He's like, yeah, if y'all need that, but Steve's kind of weird, because he's literally one of the nicest men in gaming. I just absolutely one of the most incredible men you'll ever meet. And a lot of guys in gaming are like that, and they get to a certain point and they're like, I have this stuff. I know it's probably worth something. I just don't know what to do with it. And it's great when you're like Alex or I, and you kind of have access to these people. You get approached with stuff. I know Dennis Astaire over the years has asked us, hey, because we've had Dennis has made every one of our shows except for the one last year because of COVID, and loves coming to our show. Probably eats too many candy bars when he's there for his age. He doesn't need to be eating all that sugar. But he's done so many things for us over the years in terms of donations of, old Bunnies and Burroughs things. And Dennis had a really interesting career, because, he has so many weird bullet points. When he created Bunnies and Burroughs, he created the RPG game. What's that game, Eric?
Sword Bearer.
One of
my favorites from the time.
He worked for Coleco, did some really amazing stuff with Coleco. Was basically an astronautical engineer. I mean, just incredible dude. But once again, he doesn't go to a lot of cons. People don't really know that much about him. Yeah, they might know, he's the guy who invented the Druid class, right? Which he did. But once again, a nice guy, and somebody who's willing to, provide to the hobby by saying, hey, here's some papers I wrote, or here's some things I did.
Well, yeah.
What can you guys do with them? And I'm just glad. I'm glad that we have people. I wish, and I know Alex and I've kind of talked this before, and we done our wishes, but boy, it'd be great if there was a D&D museum somewhere that this stuff could go to, and that one that we knew was being well run by professional people, like an actual museum that you could say at the end, this is where I want my stuff to go, because I know a lot of the stuff that Doug and I have for the con. It is if something happens to either of us, either or both of us, it's supposed to go to the Strong Museum of Play in New York, because that's the closest thing we have. We don't have anything. I would love for it to go someplace in Lake Geneva if they had a museum there. But
and it's not, unfortunately, not yet. I mean, I've got one of my brown boxes in the Mopop Museum in Seattle, and which is great. That's fine. I'm happy to loan stuff out like that, but that may be actually the next phase of my life, is to sort that out, because it's to actually have a museum, a legit museum, and actually have it financed well enough and run well enough. That's a major undertaking. That's real dough.
Which is why I guess nobody has done it to this point. It's a lifetime type thing. It's a thing like, this is what I'm going to do for the next 5 or 10 years of my life, is set this museum foundation up. I have some friends that are art majors that work for people who, okay, I'm going to start a museum to, I don't know, some famous painter, and it's a lot of work. Just even set up for somebody that's not even famous. Just somebody that maybe had a few works of art that are somewhat famous. It is a ton of work. And a lot of long hours, no pay or little pay.
Yeah, just think of the concept of you have a space that is going to be reasonably accessible for people to walk by. So you're not talking about like a storage locker out in the country. So something in an urban setting, and someone's going to be there you have to pay someone to be there to make sure things are okay. Mm-hmm. Just start with that and think about the economics of that, and then expand it outward. It's not a minor undertaking, I guess, is my point.
And you're the part of the country where, because I know years ago there's been several abortive attempts for a museum, and I know right now the Hobby Shop Dungeon has a museum, which is great. I mean, it's a kind of cool little place. They have a few things there, which is nice. They're not really a quote unquote museum, but that's okay. But I know at some point there was somebody going, hey, we should have a museum. We should put it here. I'm like, there's only one place it can go. And that's, it's kind of like Cooperstown, New York. I mean, it's got to be in Lake Geneva or that area. So it's got to be somebody in that area. And luckily there's, a lot of the people we have you up there, and Bill Meinhardt, and a lot of the Mark Greenberg, a lot of people live in the, that area that would be very helpful to having that kind of museum. Because I mean, you just can't have that museum in New York or LA.
Oh, you couldn't afford
Dallas
it in New York.
I mean, it wouldn't make any point, because gaming, that's not something gaming is known for. Is really, it's a Midwest thing. It started in the Midwest, and that's where all the founding fathers were from, the Midwest. And I know that now, because of Seattle, WotC moved to Seattle, or in Washington State, there's a lot of cachet there, but it's still not the same thing. Well, that's a Johnny come lately. I mean, it didn't move there till the late 90s or early aughts. Although Magic didn't start there.
1998. Yeah.
That
happened. Yeah.
So it has to be in the Midwest, and it's got to be somewhere around there. And I'll be honest with you. If you want to do this, Alex, I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I'm gonna be on your team for this, Team Alex.
I am not officially committing to that yet.
I know, but I'm just saying, you got my vote. You got my vote for a official museum runner if you decide to do this, because you've got to have a certain kind of energy and a certain connections, and just look, I'm too old and fat, and I got diabetes. I ain't running anything at this point. I'm barely running this con as it is with Doug. Between the two of us, we might live to see the 20th anniversary. Who knows? But it's great to have younger guys like that are really into it, and we've talked about this beforehand. You're a vegetarian, so you're going to live forever because you're eating healthy.
What do you need?
Who are you accusing of being younger? That's we need to find some millennials to help us with this stuff. We need to bring them into the hobby too. Well, they are in the hobby, but to do with this effort.
Well, see, what you need is the people that, like Mike and I, that are retired and don't really have huge time constraints. Like, sure, I'll spend 2 weeks a year on a pilgrimage out in the out in Wisconsin and donate my time. I mean, heck, if it happened to be in Madison, Rach would be like, oh, she's all in. two cons I can never miss.
Madison's a beautiful
held.
city too.
North Texas and GameHole, because as she's put it, GameHole is run amazingly well, and Madison is run amazingly well. She's like, I love the con, I love the area. I think if she was going to move out of New York, that would be the area to move. So
it's a lot of.
I don't know.
Madison just keeps growing. A lot of places in the country are growing, but it's crazy seeing. I'm actually from Middleton, and someone asked earlier in the chat, and I'm not smart enough to answer comments. The name of my pub, I actually have two. One is the Free House Pub, Free House in Middleton. That's where the GameHole is, and that's very close to where I live. I live a couple blocks away from there. And the other one's called the Flying Hound Ale House on the south side of town. Those are my two pubs that I'm fortunate enough to be a part owner of, and I have a friend, a buddy of mine, who is actually a gamer himself, who is the managing owner. That's to answer that question. But yes, Madison is fantastic. I love and the downstroke to Madison has always been, well, it's cold, right? But every year it seems to be getting a little warmer for some reason. I don't know why, but it does.
It's called climate change, Alex. And
is it? Okay.
But here's the deal. And Eric and I talk about this a lot too. The thing about this great about Madison is it's so much more central Madison, I guess Milwaukee too. But because going out to GaryCon every year to like Geneva, which is great. It's great to see the place where D&D came about. But it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and there's not a lot there. It's a small town. It's a real small town. Which actually is funny. It's a lot like Cooperstown or someplace like that. It's a small town outside of a bigger town. Madison's much more centrally located. There's actual things there, hotels and places to eat, and chains and things like that, which you don't have. People don't realize until they go to Lake Geneva how it's back. It's back in the boonies. I mean, it really is. It's 30 minutes away from any other big city there, which I guess would be Milwaukee, be the biggest city close by. It's not that close.
And I think part of it is the venue that you go to when you're out there for GaryCon is away from Lake Geneva Central anyway. So it's not like if you were like my one Gen Con in Milwaukee. Once you got to Gen Con, you could walk around town. You were in the middle of town. You could go out to eat if you didn't book yourself solid for 3 days or 4 days like we did. But when you go to GaryCon, you're pretty much stuck at the venue unless you have a car. So and I finally learned after going for 3 years. I guess we're renting a car next year because being at the mercy of others is not always the easiest way to have yourself there. So there's an advantage. GameHole, you can do what you want because you're still in town, and the hotels all generally have shuttles that will take you downtown, which Rates does, and it's just a great area, great location.
Yeah, the when you're talking about the strengths and weaknesses of all these shows that we love, they all have them, the strengths and weaknesses. And so when I, as bitter as I am, I'm mostly over it. What Gen Con leaving to go to Indianapolis, that was 100% the right decision for them, because now you've nested it in. It's in Indianapolis is. I'm not going to cast aspersions.
Go ahead. Throw your rock. Throw your stone.
It's not my favorite town, but it makes total sense because it's set up for conventions. You have all these connected hotels.
That's what it is. It's a convention town. Yeah, basically.
Chain restaurants all over the place, and you can stagger out anywhere and get a crappy sandwich that's overpriced. You can do that anytime.
Everybody feels at home. It's like, it feels like New York City, LA, Chicago. It's all the same.
Yeah. Well,
I've been to Gen Con a few times. I like it. I mean, it's okay city. It bit off way more than it could chew 10 years ago. It hasn't got any better since then, because the problem is it's probably not big enough for Gen Con at this point. But I don't think Gen Con's going anywhere, are they? I mean, they're not going anywhere. They're committed to Indianapolis.
Well, and Eric, Indianapolis, as opposed to like great cities like Chicago, New York, or LA, those towns you can get great meals in. And Indianapolis, you could eat something decent if you're willing to really look. But around the convention center, it's awful. It's just, and it's so, but from a money making standpoint, if I'm, because people have always like, well, how long are you going to be at Madison? Like forever until we're done doing it. I'm not going anywhere. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to move up to. We're not going to go to some, like how TV stations are ranked based on their viewership. I mean, I'm not going to go to. I'm not going to go to the Quad Cities or whatever the next one is up for Madison. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to bother with that. But if you are interested in making money in something like that, that's exactly what you do, and that's what they did, and it's worked out really well for them. They've made baskets of dough, and bully for them.
And that's tough. I mean, because we talk about how tough Gary Con is right now. Because I know Luke wants to keep it in Lake Geneva, but he has an absolute ceiling. I mean, there's a ceiling. He can, and he pretty much hit it in 2019. That's your ceiling. I mean, you can't go above that. And so I know I saw where he's committed next year, where they're going to have, they're going to have cutoff, which he said they would never have a cutoff, but they're going to have to. And he's resisted going to Milwaukee just for the fact that once you move to Milwaukee, you're a totally different animal than you are in Lake Geneva. It's not really about Gary anymore. Once you move to Milwaukee, it's more about I want to put on a really big convention, and that's a tough decision. I'm glad we don't have to make that decision for North
there you go,
or Texas. But that's. And I don't know what he does. Hello, my wife. I was going to ask you something.
Michael, where are you?
So you said something this week, and we're gonna talk about this. And this probably might be the most controversial thing we've ever talked about on the show, because we're usually pretty laid back. So you had a post this week talking about GameHole and saying that you are going to require vaccinations for GameHole. And I think I immediately. June laughed at you because I knew exactly what you're getting into, because we both run cons, and anytime you have an absolute stance on anything, it doesn't matter what it is. There's going to be somebody on the other side that's going to just absolutely go ape shit that you did the wrong thing. Because I know for our con, when we had people that got mad at us that we weren't going to require masks for everybody, and we had a lot of people that got mad at us that we even thought about, that we, why would you even wear a mask? So we had both sides going at us. Like, everybody should wear a mask versus nobody should wear a mask. And we had to look, we're just doing this, whatever the state of Texas says. So the state of Texas says this is what we're going to do. We're going to leave all emotion out of it. Boom. So have decided that you're going to require vaccinations. Could you talk a little bit about that decision?
Yeah. And similar. So I guess to harken back to what you just said. First of all, you can't make everyone happy in anything you do. That comes with the territory. So you just have to accept that as a threshold thing when you host a gathering of this many people. And in 2019 we had 5,000 attendees or so. So it's it's getting to be a kind of a bigger group. Someone's going to be pissed off about something all the time, despite your best efforts. So that's you just got to keep that. But with COVID and the vaccine, our show's in October. So by then, everyone who wants a vaccine will have ample opportunities to have one. So that's, there's not a access issue or anything like that. So then what we have are people who don't want to get a vaccine for whatever reason. They don't want to get a vaccine. And there's a myriad of them, and I'm not interested in getting into that. But what is a fact is that, almost certainly, kids under 12 will not have access to a vaccine by GameHole. And we have, and you guys know because you've been to my show, we have a robust kids presence. We have a dedicated kids track. Yeah. We have a lot of families at our show. So when it comes to and again, I don't want this to devolve into some sort of discussion about the science of COVID. But what is a fact is that if you're not vaccinated, you're far more likely to be a carrier of COVID than you're not. Again, just the fact. And so the question then comes: do I entertain? Do I countenance people's desires to not have a vaccine that's free and accessible, versus a population who does not have any access to that and is vulnerable? That's a very easy decision for me. And that's what it came down to, that, we're going to require a vaccine because I want to have families who will come to the show and have their kids who have not had access to the vaccine and have a comfort level to be able to come. And I have a 9-year-old. So this is, if you really want to boil it down to real basic fact, I'll burn that thing down before I expose my 9-year-old to anything that's unreasonably dangerous. I mean, and same with a lot of the other guys who run the show. So that's where it is. And I have the luxury. I'm not Gen Con. We're not Gen Con. We're not trying to make money. We're just trying to break even and have fun. And so, you know what, if you don't, and I'm not being, I'm not trying to be in your face about, hey, go get a vaccine or you're a bad person. I'm gonna leave that aside. Just don't come to our show this year. That's all.
Sure.
That's all. I mean,
that's hard for people to understand. It. I know Doug talked to somebody just the other day about something, in the last thing they said was, well, I guess I won't be coming to your show this year. And Doug's like, okay. I mean, what do you want us to do? Change the whole show because of you? We can't. We're not going to do that anyway. So okay. Well, I guess we'll somehow soldier on without you coming. But you can't. You're right. You cannot make everybody happy, and so the best thing to do is decide on a policy and stay with it. One of the problems Doug and I had was the policy in Texas kept changing for quite a while, and so when we first decided, okay, we were going to have an in-person con, because we had a con last year, but it was only it was locals only. It was maybe 70 people max, and they weren't all there at the same time either. We had a huge empty hotel to wander around in. It was, but it was. Distancing. We had a mask, so we felt like we were pretty safe there. Well, this year we decided we're gonna go to have it, in person. And so we said, well, what is our decisions? We talked about. We said, the safest thing is just to say, what does the state of Texas allow us to do in the health department? And that's going to be the safest way to go, because that way we can't be accused of any bias or politics or, whatever gets in decisions. We're just going strictly on what is the legal definition of what we can do, and that's so far has helped us, because if anybody had any questions, we're saying, look, this is what Texas allows us to do, and this is what we're going to do. But states are different. I mean, obviously Wisconsin is different than Texas. Texas went wide open pretty quickly, and we.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
Along those lines, we're getting everything from Public Health Dane County, and Dane County, Wisconsin, right now has the lowest COVID rates in the country.
Really?
Because of everything happening. And so we're going to be opening up in June 2nd, where all the restrictions go. And so when we've been talking to the Lion Energy Center, our convention facility, and public health, they said, if you really want to have a mass gathering, and you don't want to have silly, I shouldn't say silly, forced distancing and spacing and all. Then if everyone's vaccinated there, then you can do whatever you want.
Sure.
It is you are back to what
everything.
You did.
It trumps it all.
Right. 2019, and that's I think we all want to get back to. So this is going to, I hope, will instill confidence in the folks that have been vaccinated and want to get back into a convention, that this is going to be perfectly safe. We'll have a big dealer hall, and we're not going to make special like X's on the floors where you can stand or any of that stuff. I mean, you can just be. And I don't want to be a vaccine cop. I don't want to be a mask cop. I don't want to do any of that stuff, because this is GameHole Con. I mean, guys, it's called GameHole Con. It's not a very serious commercial. It's not a commercial venture. Obviously, we would have named it something much more palatable. Right? We would have named it something
Madison Game Days or something. Yeah.
Right. We could like Awesome Con or something, or but that's not what we did. We're doing our show, and our show is going to be fun for us. A big part of it is the fun that we have doing it. And if the fun gets taken away, then GameHole Con stops immediately.
That makes perfect sense too.
We talked about that. Like as soon as we stop having fun running the show, we are done. And so like, hey, you don't have your mask on, or you have your mask under your nose. I mean, that's the last thing I want to do, is have to do that nonsense. So. Right. This is the path.
Well, one of the things Doug and I got caught up in was that we had people say, well, are you going to check vaccine cards? Like, who wants to do that? That doesn't even, and you start thinking about something like that, you're like, I mean, how do you even do that? I mean, because I carry around my wallet, I carry around a photocopy. I don't carry my vaccine card around. That's more valuable than my Social Security card. It's at home. So I'm sitting there going, okay, well, if they have a copy, is that okay? Well, I mean, I carry a copy, so yeah, that would have to be okay. I mean, what if they left it at home? What if they flew in from New York and they left it? I mean, it just gets so beaten down, because you're like, okay, now we're not having, like you said, we're not having fun anymore. Now we're vaccine cop, we're mask cop, we're distance cop. Yeah. It helps a lot that we have done so well as a nation in terms of COVID that, the CDC has been lightening a lot of restrictions. That helps a ton because that takes a lot of the problems out of our hands. We don't have to sit there and say we're the ones making the decisions. Like, okay, well, the CDC said it's okay, so we're going to do this. But yeah, it gets to the point you're like, what? Gosh, well, and then we had somebody, then we had people like, okay, well, if you're going to check for that, are you going to check for this? This? Well, we do take temperatures when you come in. We have a temperature gauge and we take your temperature. And obviously, if somebody pops a 104 or whatever, whoa, hold on. You can't. We've told people you can't come in if you're over 100 degrees. You're gonna, you're probably sick, and you probably don't need to be coming to the con. But that's about all the policing we want to do. We don't want to really go beyond that and have to check. And not even the fact that there's. I mean, it blew my mind. There's not a national database for vaccines anyway. I mean, each state has their own. But even the state's databases aren't the only database that really works. And this I found out was that whoever you got your shot through. So the health department, for instance, the state of Texas has my information there, but it's not readily available to anybody. I can go into the DMC and they don't have my vaccination information. I can go to Wisconsin. They don't have it there. So it's going to be a huge, basically you're going to have people counterfeiting cards, which is going to boil down to because there's, there's a huge market for it and they've already busted people for doing it. So, it just works out if everybody says, "Look, this is what we're going to do. If you don't like it, don't come to the con. I mean, we're going to miss you, and maybe next year we'll be back to totally normal. It's going to be fine. But for right now, this is what we have to do to make sure the con goes on."
Well, the thing with North Texas is that your lead time is short compared to all these changes.
Right.
At least with GameHole, you have not just time to look at the health issues, but you have time to inform your attendees. Listen, before you plop your money down, this is the deal. Again, love Gary Con, but there was a huge miscommunication when they changed the policy on how to get your virtual badges for virtual Gary Con, which is because things.
And this was last year. This year it was okay, but last year, yes, it
was. No. That was this year when they had the policy. The last moment. That was the last minute of you must log in for short video chat, which then became really nice video chat. It could be a phone call. Listen, the policy wasn't necessarily a bad policy. It was horribly presented, but it was horribly presented because it was being done short term, real quick, and nobody really said, if I'm the average person, how am I going to interpret this? Because the average person, depending on where you stood on COVID and masks, or where you stood in politics, was saying, hey, this is either knocking people out because of their political beliefs, because what else is going on with this? It was just poorly written. It made nothing. It really was. It was a nothing that could have been nothing if it was presented well. So now, in the case of GameHole, here we are. We're in June. You've got four months heads up. Not even 2. We're in May. So you have 5 months heads up.
It's only May, and they're in October, so we're almost 6 months. Which is great.
Right. So there's, it's not like there's going to be a last minute surprise of, oh crap, I had no idea. As long as you're giving people plenty of time, I never see an issue with that. It's always that, 2 weeks before, we've just changed the requirements. No, so this is fine. Again, I'm immunized. The moment I could get immunized, I mentioned this before we logged in. The moment I could get immunized, I did it. With my wife, Rach, because she was before me, because she's a healthcare worker, New York State. I was actually at one point going to drive 4.5 hours to get her first shot upstate because it came up, and I'm like, listen, I want everybody in this household. It's a multi-generational. My parents live downstairs. We live upstairs. It's a 2-family home, and for us to all be immunized meant that we can let our guard down amongst each other and have my sister and my niece over who weren't immunized at the time because we don't have to worry. We're immunized, so we're not going to catch anything significant enough that it's going to put us at risk.
And that's the best part is the stats show that once you get, look, whoa, we lost Alex there. Hello. Oh no, he was a little choppy tonight. We'll try to get him back as soon as we can. I was going to say,
I hope it wasn't something I said.
I win the comorbidity bingo here. All the things I click off there. So yeah, for me it was.
I don't know, man. I might have outnumbered you. How many boxes did you check?
I checked obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure. That might be it. Maybe that was it.
Wait. So I had congestive heart failure, and I'm a cancer survivor. So I had a full hand. So.
Well, yeah, but look, it's not for everybody. I have relatives that haven't got the shot yet. Sometimes some of them have very good reasons. I mean, probably shouldn't pull back the curtain too much. I have a daughter that just gave birth in January, and she's nursing, and she doesn't feel like she wants to have the shot right now. She's young. She's in her 30s. I understand, because she's still nursing, and and the doctors have absolutely not been able to tell her definitively whether it has any effect or not. They can't tell. They just say, we don't know. And then, so that's good. The doctors are that honest that they say, look, they don't tell her, oh no, go ahead. You can nurse. Everything's fine or whatever. So she's decided not to get the shot right now. Luckily she has like 0 comorbidities and is extremely healthy for 30 years old. So it's not an issue, but I mean, look, you have to make the best decision for yourself. Right. And one thing I think, like you said, that's great about Alex is, what he posted was that he's given people a huge lead time to be able to, get all their ducks in a row. I know somebody on his page the other day, GameHole page, posted that, I've already lost my card. You have plenty of time to get one, to get another one. I've already lost my card, but I looked the other day, just out of curiosity, I looked on the Dallas site, and there's a button you can click to get another card. I mean, hey, here's click this button, let us know, when you went in, this and that, and we will check with the health department and we'll issue another card. So I was like, that's awesome. And then also through the health department, they actually have a portal that if you've lost your card, you just, once again, you click it, they have the records there. They'll send you another card. So I'm thinking that there's enough lead time, Oh, Alex, I was just talking about somebody the other day had mentioned on your site that they've lost their card. And I was just out of curiosity, checked it the other day. It's really easy to get another card, and you have plenty of time because I went to my site or to State's healthcare site, and there was a button there. Click this if you've lost your card. I clicked it, and it takes the information down. Where'd you go to get your shot? Blah blah. We'll get you another card. So I'm like, well, that's awesome. If you make your plans, early enough, you can take care of these things. So that's good that you've come out this early and basically, said, here's what we're going to need. It was tough for us because things kept changing for us because Texas was like every month or something changed. And so we had people like, hey, you said 2 months ago that you didn't want us to do this. Well, everything changed. Texas is saying this now. Hey, you said this. Well, CDC is saying this now. So everything just changed. But you're going to have everything in place by the time your con comes down.
Well, and because of the lead time, and we can say vaccines are required, but maybe they won't be. But I just want to stake this out early.
Yeah,
and then we'll see. And I'm serious about the younger population. I don't want to put them at risk. That wouldn't be responsible for me to do so. So likely. I mean, almost certainly. Vaccines are going to be required, and there's and again, if you have to take, I'm not going to Gen Con this year, and I go to Gen Con almost every year for some for reasons. I'm not going this year, and that's okay. I'm going to live. I will survive the crisis. If you miss GameHole Con one year, as sad as that is, you'll be okay. So it's totally fine.
You might want to miss Gen Con this year because from what I see, they're not having an auction, which is my favorite part of it, and they're limiting time in the vendor room, so screw Gen Con. No.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about that.
You have more insight than Eric and I, because you know these people. So tell us, what's the deal? What's going on with this?
What we'll talk about. What first of all, everyone knows is that the Indianapolis Colts are home that weekend, so they lost the stadium. So they have much. Yeah, they have smaller space. That affects me because, as you guys know, I'm an owner of True Dungeon, and True Dungeon. Well, you probably don't know this. No. We run at the Colt Stadium. That's where we've had it for the last 3 years. So now they have to put us back into the convention hall where we started, and fine, but a bunch of factors are feeding into this. First of all, international. A lot of the big international gaming companies are not coming to the States because of COVID, not because they don't want to, because the European countries are much further behind on COVID vaccines, and they want to be able to get home again. And they're concerned about being allowed to re-enter the country. So a bunch of big companies aren't coming. So that takes a whole chunk of Gen Con's business away. Then you have Paizo recently announcing that they're not going to be at Gen Con, and leaving aside why that is. That's a whole other subject.
I just saw that pop up in my Facebook feed. Earlier.
Sounds like next show's content's already taken care of. Then, Eric, we can speculate about that all day.
Yeah, it's like losing an anchor store in a major
we
mall.
Love to speculate. We love to.
Paizo.
Oh, we love to speculate about stuff.
Well, yeah. So for Paizo, Gen Con is their tentpole event, and they're not going. For those who play Pathfinder, a lot of them take the journey to Gen Con to play it. So it's their big deal. So that's a big chunk of games that are going away. So then on top of that, as if this is not a bad enough situation already, where they have a small array of events for them, a relatively small array of events. They sent out a questionnaire, and one of the questions today was, how do you feel about attending a gaming convention that doesn't have a lot of gaming events? And so everyone went, what?
What?
Like, how do you feel about going to a restaurant that doesn't have food or something?
We're just going to chill out. Yeah, we just want to chill.
How do you?
So I take it there was not a lot of enthusiasm for that when they threw that out there.
If you want some amusement, just head on over to the Gen Con Facebook page and just see.
I will after this show. Oh, I will now. That sounds delicious.
The torches and pitchforks are out. It's full on, man.
But talk about you not be able to, and myself not be able to please people. Imagine Gen Con with 50, 60,000 people. There's no way you're making even any of those people happy. I mean, you're gonna always have 10, 20% of the people that are not going to be happy. And Eric and I have talked about for the last year about how are they going to get back in the game, because they have to. I mean, this is a huge business. Gen Con is it's not just a little fan thing like Alex and I put on. This is a business, and it makes a lot of money. And so they were going to come back sooner rather than later. They can't sit out for 2 or 3 years. It just can't do it unless you want the business to go under. I mean, they have stockholders, they've got everything, right? I mean, this is run this is a company. So I think I'm going to be willing to cut them a little bit of slack, because I know for a fact I'm not ready to go to a big crowd of people and be all jammed up. And my last, Gen Con, that's what a lot of it is you're in a big crowd most of the time. So I can see why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, auction hall, obviously you have a lot of people sitting there for a long period of time, all crammed together. And okay, that makes sense. The vending, yes, the vending. I've heard the vending in the last few years has just been absolutely abysmal, because you're just crammed in there. And if one person stops in the row, then, you've got train wreck, pile up there. And so I see why they're doing what they're doing, but, and I see why they had to come back this year. I mean, like, they couldn't take that many years off, but it's going to be a rough and rocky road this year for them. It really is.
Well, Gen Con, a lot of, I'm quite frankly close with a lot of people who run Gen Con, and they're good friends, and they're hardworking people, and they put on a great show given what the type of show they're doing. It's not North Texas, it's not GameHole Con, it's a different show. That's fine. They're going to go, that's just a very different animal. But they're trying to surf waters and navigate waters that are much rougher and more difficult than what we have to do. Like,
sure.
No one's missing a meal, or that's an overstatement. No one's missing a paycheck based on what you and I do, Mike. Right? I mean, it's
exactly
not. And they have that's a real business, and they're trying to navigate a very difficult situation. And they have they sold a shitload of badges for 2020 that are rolling over. And they're trying to sort out, like, what do you want them to be activated for 2021, or do you want to roll it over again? And then you have these untimely announcements, like by Paizo, after the badge rollover date has been cut off.
Yeah,
and people are pissed off about that. I mean, and I don't know why that announcement happened when it did. And that's I will. Because I know the people involved, I'm just going to chalk it up to misfortune. There's nothing deliberate about it. There's not, because that's stupid. They wouldn't do that.
Right.
So
ISO 2.0 sucks. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a difficult situation, and I'm with you. I get the funny thing about Gen Con for us being the GameHole is that we go every year, but then we rent a space and we play our games ourselves, and we invite some people in to play the games. Like, why are we coming?
You're doing your own thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why are we going to Minneapolis for this every year? We do it every year.
It's the atmosphere. It's the whole thing, yeah, because you're where it's all happening. I did the same a couple of times I've been. We did the same thing. We didn't sign up for games. We just went and played in our own little groups. Now, we were playing with people we don't see every year, so that was kind of cool because, everybody goes there. So that was probably the one interesting part of it. But you're right, because, it's sometimes hard to get into events, too. I mean, you try to get an event, and if you're 5 minutes late signing on, every event, your first through 50 events are all taken, and you're like, well, I guess I'll play this game over here. I don't really want to play, but there's nothing else available, and I'd better grab something. Otherwise, I'm going to have nothing in that time slot. It's a different. These mega conventions are a different animal. They're really different.
Yeah, and I've done that. I've been in that situation. I haven't done it in a while, but I spent several years of losing the registration lottery, and let's give this a try. And predictably, there were some awesome experiences and some terrible ones. And now I'm just not interested in rolling the dice anymore, literally, on that. So we just meet people we know who are going to be there, and we run these goofy games. But we're not even going to do that this year because they don't even have their ability to have space is all screwed up. And so I hope they have a successful show. I hope they make their money back. I hope the company keeps going, and I know they will. They're fine, but. This is a difficult hand that they've been dealt.
So we talk about Eric and I talk about this a lot. So, what do you think what do you think the future of these mega conventions is? I mean, because it's got to change, right? I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that are very leery about being in giant crowds. I'm one of them. I've been vaccinated. I didn't like the whole crowd thing anyway, and I've caught con crud before. It sucks. The COVID vaccine does not protect against con crud. You can still get con crud. No. What do you think is the future for these like Dragon Con, San Diego Comic Con, Gen Con?
Well, that's a great question. There are so many things flowing into fandom. Part of it is that unlike these three old bastards who are staring at each other on a screen, younger generations have grown up in a culture, in a society where fantasy is much more mainstream. We're talking about the children of Harry Potter, right? So you have so many more people that are interested in the Marvel universe and D&D than our little weird group, which was a weird group in the 80s. So we're a very small little group. And so what's happened is, yes, we are, and then on top of that, so then you have the pandemic and we're going to lose a chunk of people that are going to always quarantine. Right. We had germaphobes already, but there are going to be a chunk of people who just step out of society and say, no, thank you. We're done. Yeah, we're out. So we have people coming in and people going out. I think there's still going to be a San Diego Comic Con. I think there's going to be a Gen Con. I think there's going to be a Luca, which is another massive show. Those things are going to happen, but they're going to look a little different. But I think just like everything else, it'll change and move on. I don't think it's going to be like a death knell for those kind of shows. I think they'll continue, they'll evolve, and they'll adapt because there's so many people who are interested. People want to engage in their fandom. People want to engage. People want to. I mean, that's the fun. That's why, to answer my own question, why the hell do we go to Gen Con every year? Us, these old tired nerds that don't go to Gen Con. It's because it's cool. We're like, look at all these people that dig the kind of, not exactly the same thing we do, but a lot of the same thing we do. They're like adjacent to us. It's just the energy of it is cool. And that's always going to be a thing.
Well,
it's tribal. Yeah, definitely.
Yes, you go to socialize. I don't go to conventions to play games. I'll run games because I'm associated with the Frogs, but like at North Texas, I'm in one game because James Shields signed me up for the last spot in one of the games he's running. Otherwise, I'm just there to socialize. If I go into a game, it's because, hey, it's a pickup game. We're all kind of hitting it off, and we'll go with it. I can game in New York. I can get on a VTT and find a group probably real quick, but I'm not going to get the experience of sitting down or just talking in a hallway with people that I don't normally see face to face. And there's something very special about that. And I think that's why, we talk about virtual conventions and how they've improved and how we can improve the interface in a virtual convention. But you're never going to make the transition from physical to virtual, because you're not going to be able to replicate not just the gamer funk, but you're not going to be able to replicate that ability to interact and truly shake hands or elbow bump and just bump into somebody like Tim Kask in the hallway, or Steve Marsh, something like that. You can't duplicate that at a virtual con, which you can at a regular con.
We talked about this a little bit before we came on 15 hours ago, about that I meet bi-weekly with the CFO, CEO of Gen Con, Luca, UK Games Expo, and a few others. And the reason we all started this group was like, holy shit, COVID, what are we going to do? And so we were initially trying to figure out uniform COVID policies, how to make it safe for our attendees. And then we started to talk about, all right, we're all going to do virtual cons. How is this going to look? How can we do this to make it be kind of cool? And the answer is, you're absolutely right, Eric. It's not. We tried, like Gamma really tried to have a virtual dealer hall. We tried to have some sort of virtual dealer hall experience. It just sucks. It's just not the same. I mean, I will say though, from this last year, I have played a shitload of games online on Zoom, and it's been great because I've been able to play with people around the country, because I never would have before the pandemic. I never would have even considered that. I've been playing a ton of games. There was a stretch there where I was running D&D 5 nights a week, and all virtual and so a lot of them were in Madison, my friends, because we were just working together. So that actually the pandemic was good for me to open up my eyes that this is this thing in front of me, reasonable tool to game with. But it is not a reasonable tool to attend conventions at.
No. Again, the dealer hall is a huge thing that you cannot duplicate.
No.
Duplicate the interaction between people. Sure. Right. Can you do a panel? Definitely. Can you run games? Obviously. But you know what? This is like having a panel right here, and you don't have to have a virtual con for it. You don't need a virtual con to run VTT games. Frog God is great hosting the virtual Frog God weekends once a season. It's not a convention. It's just, nobody's saying, well, it's going to be like a convention. It can't be. And that, even the greatness of the virtual reality headsets, like the Oculus too, I'm loving it. And I'm doing, workouts with Zach Glazer multiple times per week. But am I going to be able to do a virtual con and walk up and peruse Bad Mike's books and say, oh, look at this old Judges Guild. Hey, there's a hole in my Judges Guild collection I grab. I can't do that virtually. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to pick it up and look at it. You just can't. And so there's a lot you can do, but there's just so much you can't. You're not going to be able to duplicate it.
Well, anecdotally, a lot of merchants suffered a lot during the pandemic because it turned out that people weren't interested in virtual merchant halls or vendor halls, and they just weren't. And I know we've talked about James Raggy's issues. He says he lost 80% of his business or something because he couldn't do conventions. I mean, it does have an effect. I know for a fact. Okay, let's just say that I know for a fact that online virtual vending halls don't do very well.
No.
I say that as Frog God having a virtual at a couple of cons, and we did virtually no business, like zero. I can show you the numbers. I can show you the numbers from our show. It's just was the number of actual interactions, and we tried to actually spend I spent some dough in creating a bazaar image, like a medieval bazaar. With different booths, and then our vendors were at these locations. You can interact with them, and then little things would pop up about the GameHole Con lore and stuff like that. We tried to make it as cool as possible, and we had shockingly little interaction with it. There's actually even less than I thought it would. It was just people just aren't interested, and that's fine. And why would you when you have something that's a real shopping site like Amazon?
Like I'm not gonna indulge. If I want to buy the Alien board game, the Alien RPG, I don't need to go to GameHole Con to a game store and talk to someone who is confused and then have it shipped where I can just 2 clicks. It's from Amazon. It's gonna be at my doorstep tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is how I did it too. Yeah, the box. I got the box set of Alien RPG. Haven't delved into it too much, but I have been told that although it's not an old school system, in play it's very old school. So
look. So I'm going to the next time I get roasted at RPG at North Texas RPG, it's because I'm the Flavor Flav. I'm the Flavor Flav of Free League. I'm a year zero.
There you go. There you
I
go.
love
writing down that quote for future use right here. Favorite Flav of Free League.
That's a fact. Somebody's got to make that into like their ringtone.
I want to pimp something, Eric, real quick, since it's our show. Can I pimp something? Sure. I just put up. We're going to have a auction at the North Texas this year. I hope Alex would help me again. If Alex has been my pal at the auction the last few years, I've helped him at GameHole, and I would enjoy you coming on stage again if you want to help me out. I noticed we have Jim Kitchen at the con this year too. I might try to get him up there too. That dude knows more than you and I put together times 10 when it comes to auctions. But yeah, definitely, I'd love you to help me out again. But I was going to say I listed some of the auction times. Yeah, we had some great donations again. We're not doing, unfortunately. If you want to make a bid, you're not going to the con, you'll have to IM me or get in contact with me and put a reserve on there. Make it extremely high because we have some big spenders of the auction. But here's a couple of items I just got in this week that are pretty good. We have the AD&D fighting wheel for those who collect these sort of things. Very extremely hard to find. I have a really, really nice 6-print DM screen. Really beautiful shape. It's barely brown inside. It's really solid. So that was pretty nice. And then we just had this baby come in, complete with a map book and everything. So we're definitely having an auction again this year. So that's something else people look forward to that are coming to the con. We don't, unfortunately, we don't take phone bids. We don't take online bids. It's just too much trouble to deal with. We only do in person. So if you're coming to the con, you have a lot. I just posted a list on the North Texas RPG Con Facebook page, partial list of what we're going to have. I'm sure we're going to get some more donations as time comes, but all the money goes to the con. So it's definitely something that we're looking for some really big. If you want to donate something, it'd be great. We do commission sales, but really only for something that's really expensive. We don't want to do a commission sale on a $25 item, obviously. Now a $2,000 item, we'll do that. So anyway, I just want to throw that in there because
I have a few things. I have a few things, Mike. I'll be bringing.
Oh, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, I will. And what's bizarre about your show is that it's here already. It's been. The last time I went to a show was the last time you went to a show.
2 weeks from tonight. 2 weeks from tonight. I can't believe it.
It was when I saw you in San Antonio for PAX South. That's the last show I went.
Last show I went to also. Well, I went to North Texas last year, but it really wasn't. It was more like a fun neighborhood gaming session. But yes, PAX South was the last con we both attended, January of 2020. That was it.
And so it's just kind of like. Yep. Yeah, it's just been this float ever since, and now all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm going to be at a con in 2 weeks. So anyway, I've been meaning to. I don't mean to be the last second guy. I have a pile that I've said this is for North Texas.
Hey, whatever you can spare, we appreciate it. I mean, like I said, it's Doug. For those who don't know, Doug loses money on this every year, and now with the stage 4 cancer, a lot of the disposable income he had once upon a time years ago, he doesn't really have right now. And so we've cut some corners on some things, and we saved money. We've saved enough money to where he's not getting absolutely hammered, but we still will lose money. Last year we had some amazing donations to the auction, and we broke even last year, which is just crazy. We had a couple of Easily paintings that brought in several $1,000s. And that, I mean, it really helped a lot. The auction helps us a lot. So if you don't want to do anything with the auction, we have a raffle. We've got some amazing raffle items up. Eric, can you post that in the chat, the auction or the raffle? I think you got the link there.
You're gonna make me find the link now.
Yeah, it's not easy to find for me, but we have a OCE white box. We've got some. I mean, Doug pulled some stuff he should never pull for the raffle. I was so mad at him afterwards because that's honestly stuff that really would have been in the auction. And I'm like, what are you doing? Cass is a big box set signed by Jeff Talanian. I mean, he just went in there and grabbed the first things off the shelf he found. I'm like, we're going to have to make like $2,000 in the raffle to even make it worthwhile. But yeah, the raffle is a great way to support the con. You don't have to be there to win. And yeah, we always have somebody that's not there win something. We have to ship it out, so that's no problem.
Yeah, my link is broken, Mike.
All right, I will try. If you check out Tenkar's Tavern, we'll have that up this week. But if you go to the North Texas RPG Con Facebook page, the link is there. It's and the tickets are. We don't call them raffle tickets since PayPal does not allow you to have raffles. They're called squeaky cage tickets for reasons too long to explain. But they're only $5 each, and you never know. We've had people get lucky only buying $20 worth of tickets, and they walked away with like a white box or something. So, that's all my pimping. I just wanted to pimp a couple things there. I'm all excited about 2 weeks from now.
North Texas RPG is not going anywhere. There are me and a handful of people who are absolutely committed to making sure it doesn't, and so that's.
That's great, and we really appreciate that. We have some of the most loyalist. I mean, it's the loyalist attendees ever. I mean, it's just amazing. And for those aware of Doug's health struggles, he has stage 4 colon cancer, and and I don't want to be maudlin about this, but I mean, Doug and I talk about this every day. He was just here the other day. We just talked about each one of these cons could be Doug's last one. He knows that. He's living past the day when they said he was going to die. He has broken the record. They said top end 4 years, and he's already made it past 4 years. So he's well aware of the fact that that each one could be his last, and so that But he has such a great time, and that's the whole thing. I want him. It's not just us all having a good time there. It's watching Doug have a great time. And it makes you really understand how hey, you need to enjoy the moment. Get into the moment, and every con that you go to, have say hi to your friends, buy something from somebody, have a talk. I mean, just it's really. In the last few years, I'm like Eric. I don't play in games. I go to cons. I just like to talk to people and make contact, and just hang out because that's the stuff I remember years later. I remember a conversation. I remember Alex drunk around a table saying he was the Flavor Flav of 5e, and I'm writing that down in my little notebook because he's talking to the I can't remember the guy's name. He's the mail order guy for Watson, not mail order guy, but he's the online guy for Watson.
Kurt.
Yeah, that was it.
So, Kurt was here earlier. Said hello. And here you are, Mike. You're forgetting who he is.
No. Well, Kurt and I play in a weekly D&D game these days online on Zoom. So.
And by the way, Kurt is an amazing human being. He donates to North Texas every year because he got to. So for those who don't know the story, WotC, those lunatics, at one point they had this warehouse that basically had everything ever printed for TSR that they moved from Wisconsin. And at a certain point, they just said, "Yeah, if you're an employee here, just go in and get whatever you want. Just take it." And Kurt walks in there, and Kurt knows the stuff's worth, and his eyes about turn to like plate size, and he just grabs as much as he can because it's literally just all piles of shrink wrap stuff and original paintings. They had the painting for the cover of Holmes box set in the back of it. I mean, it's just nuts. I can't believe they couldn't take care of their heritage better than that. But it was our gain because Kurt grabbed so much stuff that he to this day he said this about 4 or 5 items every year. And it's always something really interesting, like a shrink wrapped, just something hard to find or just something really unusual or weird. And I just think that's the most hilarious story. They didn't even understand what they had in that room. And they're just like, oh yeah, we have the portrait for the Holmes box set in the back. That's kind of cool. Like, yeah, it might just be in a museum or, framed a little better. I mean, I don't know, but
I should remember this better. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was FRA 1, maybe the Haunted Halls of Everstar. I was that did not come in shrink wrap because I had scoured the planet for it. Because again, my stupid quest to have everything in shrink. And Kurt showed up at my show, up in the game hole. I invited him up, and he handed me The copy he took.
He had a copy. Of course he did, because he grabbed everything in sight when he walked. When he
Like,
walked in that
dude.
room, it was like Indiana Jones in the big warehouse at the end. Kurt's
Well,
like,
what was interesting about this is how much
because he knew it was worth.
This is how nice of a guy he is, though. And so I was, I've become good friends with him over the years. So I'm sorry, this has become a Kurt Gold discussion, but we'll do this. He sent me his list of his want list.
We love Kurt. That's okay. Keep it rolling.
Okay. It was a significant want list. It was far more than you'd think, given what he had access to. So I just put a box together of like 15 shrink wrap, like 1A things that I sent back to him, because I could never thank him for what he gave me. Like Ravenloft stuff, and he's still looking for all kinds of stuff. He's trying to do this, the same thing we all are, to be complete. And
he's a great ambassador for WotC and to the hobby too. He's just a nice guy, and he'll be at the con this year, which I can't wait to see him. Last year we had a post Saturday Night Con get together online. He was there, and he just was lamenting how much he missed it. So that's going to be great. So we have a few minutes here. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
I was going to ask you. I wanted, since we have a few minutes, I just wanted to hear what your impressions or your thoughts of the GameHole Con auction, sharing the stage with Rick Meitz, the CEO of
that puts me in a pickle, because Rick has, he has a. He's just. I'm like down here and he's up here, so it's going to be very daunting. However, I have a huge ego, and that's going to help me quite a bit in this endeavor. I was once told by one of the biggest names in our industry that I was the worst auctioneer he had ever heard. I'll tell you that story later, Alex. So I haven't told you already, and that has inspired me to keep going in the future. And I don't think he was right. I don't think I'm the worst he's ever heard, or he'd ever heard. But Rick, I love Rick, and that's going to be great. Rick's a really humble guy for the position he has. I mean, his laundry list of accomplishments is very daunting, but I think I can hang with him. I think I can hang with Rick. It's going to be fun.
There's a reason why you are the head auctioneer at GameHole Con. You are very good. I like to. I'm a trial lawyer for Christ's sakes. I'd like to think that I can talk publicly and make sense. Right. And coherent and tell a story, but you have a really good gift for that, Mike. And so that's I absolutely appreciate that. I want to say that I have been to a lot of auctions, and I was really inspired when I went to my first Gen Con auction, seeing Frank and Tim and just all the guys they had during the day there. Because I had been to auctions in the past, but they were always really dry, boring affairs, and we're gonna, we sold it, and I'm just like, it's just not my style. And going to the Gen Con auction really opened my eyes about what you could do in an auction. And then you both have been in the auctions we do. We like to take it easy. I'll tell people in the audience, if I auction something that they've written, hey, tell us a story about the item. Tell us about why is this item unique, or why is this interesting. And we just take it slow, and we don't make it to this big, really, official affair. And I think that's worked really good. I think people appreciate kind of the more laid back aspect of the auction. They don't feel like they're rushed. I've had a couple people actually tell me that, I like your auction. I don't bid on anything because it goes too high, but I just love to hear, just everybody talking among each other and making fun of each other. Of course, we bag on Bill Meinhardt always during the auction, because you got to do that. You got to bag on Bill. Right. And, and so I appreciate that. But yeah, that's a concentrated effort. I do not think I'm anywhere near the auctioneer I would like to be. I think I'm okay. I don't think I'm that great, but it's one of those things. It's like anything else. You get better the more you do it, right? And I think I'm better now than I was 5 or 6 years ago. But a lot of it has to do with comfort level, and I feel very comfortable at GameHole Con because I love GameHole, and obviously I feel very comfortable at North Texas. So it works out. It works out well for everybody, and I think we do pretty good. I think we get the maximum bid we could get for a lot of stuff. I mean, that's a big thing about auctioneering. And honestly, that's something that Frank Menster kind of taught me, is that Frank was really well known for squeezing the last dollar out of people.
Oh, God.
And he could. He could squeeze last dollar. I'm not as good as him.
With me that time, I had to bow out. Jeez.
I mean, he will squeeze the last piece of life out of you. That's not really my style as much. I like to make sure everybody, is comfortable with the price they pay, because I don't like buyer regret, like, oh God, I overpaid for this. but I do like some of the lessons that I learned from him, which is, don't go too fast. I was at an auction one year. This person's going to remain nameless too. And they went way too fast. And I thought they're doing a disservice to not only the auction, but to the people who put these items up for commission. Because a lot of people who put items in a convention as a commission, you owe it to those people to get the highest bid you can, because, the difference between a commission on $100 and $200 is, $20, $30 or whatever. Yeah. And if you're going too fast, you're not getting that.
So your auction and my auction, as opposed to Gen Con, we have, if we have 50 items, that's a big auction.
Right.
We have culled through. We have just really cool things that people should be interested in. All those things are worthy of discussion, or 100 items, or whatever the number is. Gen Con's is plowing through.
Yeah,
things.
yeah. We don't have, like, you go to Gen Con and you find Oh, you go through Gen Con, and what happens is, I noticed this a few years I was there, is you have a lot of vendors getting rid of garbage they don't want, and so they donate it to Gen Con. So you got all these lot stays. It's like, extra, it's like pencils and dice and stickers. It's just garbage. And yeah, our auctions, the great thing about the GameHole and the North Texas auction is it's all either something unusual or unique or just rare. I mean, it's all good stuff. There's nothing bummer in the crowd. It's all good things. And that's the problem when you have these big giant auctions, is people just, and like you said, they have to plow through it. They're just like, okay, we're just going real fast, which if you're a buyer, you can get some good deals, but it's a disservice to the person who, and I look, one year I paid for my Gen Con trip because I put probably about 200 items in the Gen Con auction. And that's the year I brought my wife with me, and it paid for our hotel room and our whole week. But I remember watching some of my auctions and getting infuriated when they went through the auction so quick. I had something that I knew in my head, this is a $200 item. And the guy's like, okay, we got a bid here, $50. Okay, sold. And I'm like, whoa, dude, I need that money. And so I've always tried to take that into account when you do an auctions, try to, go a little slower and let people know, hey, this is probably worth this much. I mean, if you get it for this much, it's going to be a good deal, but, it's really worth a lot more than that. You could probably turn around and sell on eBay for twice as much. So you throw stuff like that in there and usually end up getting a better bid, because I know people are at auctions to get deals, but you gotta throw a little bit at the guy who donated the item and the convention itself. And the convention, they use that money. I mean, that's money that a lot of times the convention needs.
Right. Well, and I think at the end of the day, that's why our auctions are cool, because your auction is trying to pay for your show. My auction is trying to raise money for charity. So if you're on the fence about, boy, do I really want to pull the trigger for this? Well, you're doing some good with this bid.
Sure.
It's not, and that's I think that's a nice thing about it too. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and we definitely put, and you have a great charity that you guys, you have the same charity this year as you do the last few years. Yeah, it's great. Great charity.
Children's hospitals. I mean, my youngest son was saved. His life was saved at 3 days old by intervention by Wisconsin Children's Hospital, and I'll always be part of that now going forward for the rest of my life. So
obviously, yes, and that's a great charity. So yeah, we love making money for that, and we've done some pretty big numbers for the last few years too. Which is great. We've been number 1 or 2 not last year, but the last 3 years in the state for all fundraisers. Wow,
so really?
And we had some stuff at least in 2019 or even 2018, we had some stuff that I asked Bill, I said, have you seen this in Gen Con auction? He's like, not for 15, 20 years. Nope. I mean, we had some really, really rare stuff. So I'm hoping we get some really good. I've got a couple items I think I'm going to throw in the GameHole this year that's going to blow your mind. So
I will be auctioning off. I'll be auctioning off a first print brown box.
Oh, snap. Yes. Nice. Oh, I can't wait to get my grubby paws on that and auction that off.
Yep.
Oh, that'll be nice. Oh, well, we had third print or second print 2 years ago. They went for pretty good amount. Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be an Orange B3 I know is in. I know a few other things. So yeah, there'll be some. Yeah.
Yeah, tell Rick he can just stay home. I'm gonna do this all myself. This is gonna be too fun. I don't want Rick there sharing my glory. But no, that's I can't wait to see him there. It's gonna be great.
He's gonna put in some rare Chaosium stuff.
Right. Because,
Really?
And by the way, Call of Cthulhu is a passion of yours too. You're a huge Call of Cthulhu fan also. So
yeah,
which is something we talked about Ben Burns last week. I mean, it's like all these guys have this secret Call of Cthulhu Jones they don't really talk about, but it's always there. This Call of Cthulhu love.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, since we're running up towards the end, I wanted to, and since we just roll everywhere, let's talk a little NBA basketball because we talked Dallas Cowboy football with Greg Gillespie. We can talk NBA basketball with my man Alex here because he is a fan of the Bucks, the much maligned Bucks, who were just garbage through most of their history. I mean, it's true. I mean, it's sad to say, but then they got this guy named Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? I don't know if that's his name. I just call him the Greek Freak.
It's pronounced Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, actually.
Yeah, he's one of the top 3 or 4 players in the game. Amazing guy, and so suddenly they're relevant again. Unlike the Knicks, who haven't been relevant for 20 years. Sorry, but now actually the Knicks are in the playoffs this year too. They're in the playoffs. The Knicks are in the playoffs for the first time since like 2001 or something.
They're still not relevant. All right. They might be in the playoffs. Trust me, they're still not relevant. I will, again, like I said before, Ewing Starks, that's the era that I just, after that, I was like, all right. I can't.
Well, Eric, they actually are good this year. You might want to catch a couple Knicks games. They're not terrible. They're probably one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the East. Now, my thing is I come with it with the Mavericks were just putrid for my whole life until they got this German dude named Dirk in 1999. So ever since then, I've been lucky to watch his entire career. And then as I bummed out.
Hold on. Let's pump the brakes on that.
Oh, okay. I know what you want to talk about. Yeah.
Do you know how you got Dirk?
Yes, we did. We made a draft day trade with with Milwaukee. I remember that. Yeah, that's got to be one of the worst draft. So basically, the Mavericks took Tractor Trailer, right?
Yep.
And they traded Tractor Trailer for the rights to draft Dirk. And so you guys end up with Tractor. How'd that work out? That Tractor.
Yeah.
So we got Dirk. So Dirk played here for 21 years. And so he's passed the torch to this Slovenian guy named Luka. And Luka, so I'm finally interested in basketball again because this dude, LeBron James came out and said, this kid's the best player in the game. He's 21 years old. He was the MVP in a league where he played with adults in Europe. Just absolutely insane player. He's already broken the Mavericks record for triple doubles. Just a triple double machine. He's just a good player. He's young. He's 21. He's not a Greek freak yet. By any means. Great. Giannis is kind of one of a kind there. So, give me your predictions here, Alex. You got about 3. See, the West we have top to bottom 1 to 8. They're all pretty good teams. I think almost any of those teams could advance. The East, you got maybe 3 or 4. So, and then the other 4, I wouldn't even worry about. So,
sure. The unfortunate thing for the Bucks is that they're going to draw the Miami Heat in the first round, which is going to be probably the toughest series in the playoffs.
I agree. I agree with you. Yeah.
I'm totally cool. I like our chances against either the Nets or the Sixers. Just based on matchups and all that kind of stuff, and we'll leave all the basketball nuances aside. But the Bucks, what I like about this year is, despite having the best player in the league, and then with Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, no one's talking about the Bucks right now, as opposed to last year. No one's talking about
1 seed, yeah.
Right, no one's talking about them. We're 2 games out of first place as a 3 seed, so it's great. We're just going to slide in. And this is a guy, I live in Madison, Wisconsin, Middleton, Wisconsin. I'm a season ticket holder in Milwaukee.
You make the drive.
That's how big of a fan I am. I'm one of those guys. The Bucks are a big deal.
For sneaking in, because I know the year the Mavericks won it all in 2011, they were on no one's radar. They were on no one's radar. Dirk was a good player, and they're kind of always in the mix every year. And they had lost the series in 2006 to a pretty good Heat team, and that was the year that they had the super team, the Heat, and everybody had just going. And these guys are going to win. Yeah, they have the big trio, and the Mavericks kind of snuck into the playoffs, and they just started winning games, and they just wiped out the Lakers that year, and so like all of a sudden they're in the finals. They're playing the Heat, and nobody picked them to win. Zero.
No.
I didn't even pick them to win because they're playing against LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Yeah, it was insane, and they won. And it was, I mean, to this day, as much as a Cowboy fan I am, that is absolutely the most satisfying sports season and finale I've ever had in my life, just because it wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to happen at all. And you know how basketball is, Alex. There's like 5 teams that win it every year. I mean, you have the Celtics, the Lakers, the Spurs for a long time, the Pistons. Yeah. I mean, these one and done teams like the Raptors a couple years ago. And then, of course, you had Golden State that won like 2 or 3 times in a row. I mean, you just don't have these teams sneak in and win. And so I guess the Bucks are kind of in the same boat. I mean, you know, you're kind of hoping everybody overlooks you, and then you can sneak in and just boom, you know, kill them in the playoffs, because it's crazy. Why didn't they finish higher in the standings? I'm thinking with Giannis on there, they should have Giannis on there. They should have had a much better season than they did.
Well, they weren't trying to win the regular season because they won the last 2 regular seasons, and they got bumped early in the playoffs. So they're just like, let's tinker with lineups and not worry about it. And also the COVID season, all that. So
sure,
I don't know. We'll see. And if in similar fashion, which your point was well taken. At least basketball is not like baseball. Baseball is the worst sport for the teams that win. You know, it's the Yankees and the Dodgers, right? Or it's the
there's no cap. There's no cap in baseball. So yeah, you can just buy a team. Yeah. You buy the best team there. You want to.
At least basketball has a little bit, and you know, a little more sanity to that. But if the city of Milwaukee wins a championship, that shit is going to be crazy. I mean, that is going to be off the chain. And I'll be there with my shirt off, and it'll be great. I can't wait.
So how many years do we have to wait for the finals, Luka versus the Freak? How many? I mean, because the Mavericks, you know, they snuck into they were the 5th seed this year. They're not that good. I mean, they won some games, but their team is not in place. They have Luka, and they have some good role players around, but they're obviously not in place. He needs some really good free agent to come play with him.
You've got the Porzingis problem. You've got to resolve that first.
Right. And he keeps getting hurt, so he's not going to be part of this team when they start winning. I have a feeling he's just too injury prone. I don't think they re-up him when his time comes, I think they'd love to trade him too. But eventually it'd be cool to see Mavericks and the Bucks, man. That'd be awesome. So that would be some good stuff.
Another very good friend of mine in gaming is the guy who designed and built D&D Beyond. Adam Bradford is the guy who did that. And he's now with Demiplane. And I have an announcement about that in your next show, if you'd like me on, about my participation in that company.
Okay.
Yes.
Whoa, yes. We're only saying yes because we mean it.
He's the guy who's behind D&D Beyond. And he's a huge Mavericks fan, and he and I have already set up this plan about going to home and home.
Oh, where does he live at? Does he live in Texas too? Okay, well, I'll tell you what's
Alabama.
Oh, Alabama. Okay, well, so it's weird because basketball is one of those teams where it's more you focus on the individual. Because I know people that are LeBron fans, and even though he's played for 5 different franchises, they followed him around. I have a friend he lives in New York, and we have never met face to face. We've been friends for 20 years. He's a huge Mavericks fan because he was a Dirk fan. He loved Dirk growing up. And of course, as Eric will tell you, the Knicks were absolute garbage until, for a long time. They've been just terrible. And so rather than being a Knicks fan, he actually became a Dirk fan and Mavericks fan. And we send each other messages before games to this day. My wife can't believe it's been 20 years and we still send each other messages. But because that's cool, and that's what's cool about basketball is as most other sports are regional. You're this guy's fan, you live in this area, you're a Bears fan, you live in Chicago, this and that. Baseball is a little different because you have Yankees fans everywhere, obviously, and Dodgers fans. But basketball fans, man, they can be for all over the place because they will follow players. Wherever this player goes. Like I said, I have friends that are LeBron fans, and they just wherever he's been, they go buy a jersey for that team and slap it on, and they got LeBron on the back. So that's kind of cool. Is that you have
This is how bad.
Go ahead, Alex.
This is how bad the Knicks are. Before
I don't know how bad they are, but let's hear.
Before I saw Mike in San Antonio for PAC South, the last game, I went. The last flight I went before that was about in mid-December, December 15 or something like that, where my son, then 8, and I flew out to Manhattan. We flew to LaGuardia and drove over to Manhattan and went to a Knicks game, Bucks at Knicks, and we got second row seats for like a couple $100. I mean, it wasn't even because nobody
gave a shit. No,
and it was like Spike Lee is across the court. We're sitting like courtside across from Spike Lee and John McEnroe, and I'm like, I have to pay more to go to a Bucks game than at Madison Square Garden.
For parking. You pay more for parking at the Bucks game. Well, they're the 4 seed. The Knicks are the 4 seed this year, Alex. I mean, they're the 4 seed. So honestly, if you want to get your basketball on for the next decade, Eric, watch them now while they're somewhat good, and they actually have a chance. The Knicks have a chance versus the Hawks. They're playing the Hawks. The Hawks are garbage. You can beat the Hawks.
All right. Listen, I might have to pay a little attention. Like I said, I haven't paid. I was literally a rookie cop, and it's like you come in for meal, and you're right to the lounge, and you'd be like, "Oh, great, there's a Knicks game on." It's like 9:30 at night, and you're working to 2:00 in the morning, and it was great. It was exciting. Win, lose, or draw, they were playing hard.
Yep.
Then after that, it was just like, first off, who are these? No names. Like for the Knicks to get a player that was named usually meant they were going to trade him before the season was out. It's like, who cares? Who cares? You can make me have to watch again.
As a lifelong Bucks fan, of course, I hated the Chicago Bulls. So then I loved the Pat Riley Knicks. They were like, I will fight you, Michael Jordan. I'll punch you in the face. So I love them, and they couldn't ever get over the top, but it was still great. I love the Knicks.
Yeah, no, that was those were the Knicks that I would watch, and that's also pretty much when I stopped watching hockey back in the in those days, because the Rangers were good, and I hate to say it, they were violent back then. Sure. Now, now you watch hockey, you're kind of like, all right, yeah. I'll be able to watch the Knicks.
I'm just looking at the play-in tournament, which I'm not going to explain the play-in tournament. If you don't know NBA, I'm not going to explain it. But basically, the Grizzlies just beat the Spurs, so fuck you, Spurs. I hate the Spurs. Spurs go home. Spurs go home. Womp womp. And then later on tonight, we get to see the Lakers or the Warriors get to be in the 7-8 spots. But go to hell, Spurs. I hate you. I hate that the Spurs have been good too long in Texas. See, the thing about the Mavericks fan, being a Mavericks fan, is Houston won 2 NBA championships. Then the Spurs won like 5, and the Mavericks could never get over the hump. We were the weak sister of Texas NBA. It was awful. So that Dirk giving us that one, that was worth everything. That was the best year ever. So I hope I hope your Bucks win, Alex. I root for the Bucks every time in the finals because I love the little the small town teams beating up the big bullies like the New York teams and the East Coast teams.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'll be rooting for you again. I'm rooting for the Mavs too. I don't even know if they can make it past the Clippers. They played them pretty good last year, and they have a little better team this year. We'll see, but the Bucks are definitely on my radar for hoping they win. So. I want to see you celebrate shirtless. I want your shirt off. I want you at the game hole pouring beers, and I want everyone's maps down there.
Pictures.
Oh no!
You got shrink wrap modules. You're like popping champagne in there.
No, I'm gonna be charging the TNT set with my shirt off, and security's gonna have to restrain me, kind of stuff. I'm not talking like private video scans only thing. I'm talking like a public arrest.
Okay. So you heard it here first, folks.
Public arrest by Alex Kammer at TNT. I love this. This is great. Well, thank you, Alex. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My final comment is I like how you guys have totally dumped water on your gaming podcast about a 10-minute discussion of our niche fandom with NBA.
No, but that happens all the time. Listen,
you can do this
anytime you want. It's just us 3.
Every week.
That's the whole thing.
We do this every week.
This is we joke that it's a hex crawl. We joke that it's a sandbox. But really, what it is we know pretty much where the first hour is going to go, and then we know the second hour is kind of going to go in its own direction. And by the time we wrap up, we are nowhere near where we started. It's not like doing a Judges Guild adventure and like the Riverlands. Like, wait, no, I'm off the map. Now I'm on like Rob Conley's map that was building off it. It's just we literally go in our own direction. It's what our viewers and listeners expect. I tell you the truth, because if we actually had any kind of show prep and bullet points to hit, nobody would care, because we wouldn't be fun.
Yeah,
well, we didn't lose more people just there than we did during Greg Gillespie and mine's Cowboy Talk. We lost more people there, I guarantee you, than we did just now. So don't worry about it. We're okay.
Well,
we lost plenty of people. We're discussing draft. I mean, we're discussing like the 7th round draft pick and stuff. I mean, everybody tuned out at that point.
Yeah,
we're talking about Dak Prescott's contract and stuff. They're like, we're out.
Yeah, it's like well, everybody's dropping out. It's like, geez.
Well,
Alex, seriously.
I miss you guys. I miss you guys. I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks. This is
2 weeks, man. It's gonna be great.
Obnoxious hugs and all that. So yeah.
This is
shirtless.
And another reason why. No, well, listen, I've already seen James Bond shirtless. I don't think I need to go further than that.
I think Alex is gonna look a lot hotter shirtless. Than James Bond.
Definitely, but still. I don't like to see men topless, but in any that's another discussion. This is Mike and I do this because this is really the closest we can have to having these convention discussions when you're just bullshitting at the bar or outside the bar or wherever, and sitting and lounging in the chairs by the elevators at North Texas. This is the type of conversation, and I really missed it last year, and I'm so glad that this you can replicate from a convention. You might not be able to get the Gamers Hall and the full on randomly bumping into special guests, but you can have some really amazing conversations, and that's because we had really amazing guests. So again, thank you. We have to time we're out, and I guess Gen Con we'll have to go out for tacos again with the Frog Guide trip. Because
vegetarian tacos.
That's what.
So.
Yes, I guess would it be fish tacos, or that's not vegetarian enough?
No, I'll eat fish.
All right.
Oh, okay. That's vegetarian taco. All right, all right. I'm there.
Fishcatarian. Folks, as we say every time at the end of one of these things, we're still in the midst of the world of COVID. Everybody here that you're talking with or has been talking to you has been vaccinated. We're not telling you what to do. This is just a fact from the three of us. Use your common sense to keep yourself, your family, your friends, your loved ones healthy and safe. Because if you're sick, you're not helping anybody. So the primary thing is to keep yourself healthy. Just common sense. Be safe, be well, God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well. And I'll be back tomorrow, and I'll be back Friday live stream with Glenn Hallstrom, Dungeons, Dragons, and Discourse. Again, folks, thank you much. Later.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Aaron.